from the beginning.
And I was shown that that Lucifer would return, that the UN and the Vatican were going to be completely behind it, again, under false pretenses. He's going to show up and say, I'm here to save the day, right? And, okay, fine, you know.
Yeah, of course,
ahead,
you can say whatever you want. But I've always hated censorship. It's the internet.
Sometimes, you know, once they get you for your first love bite, well, it depends on how aware you are, right?
I forgot my bullets. I never had a gun. Here I am left standing. Am I the only one? For what I see, memories have guilted me. I'll never see the sun.
First of all, as you know, the Anunnaki and the Draco are enemies. Second of all, underneath Baghdad was a stargate that was created by the Anunnaki so that they could transfer from Jupiter to the Earth.
I'll never see the sun. I could just end it all, but the demons will have won.
Magical practitioners that, you know, some are good and some use their magic for good and to heal and to help, and others do use it for evil. And, you know, in some cases, you know, people really were
This is too much sometimes. From the broken ruins of Babylon, this is End of Days Radio. And I am your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from the shimmering Emerald City right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. How are you? Hello. It is such a great time to be alive. Today's date is May 10th, 2018. And oh my God, so much has happened since I was last on air. So many big changes. So many strange events have occurred. And we'll talk about them. We'll talk about them after our guest during the wrap-up period of this show. Some of you, that's your favorite portion of the show, and some of you absolutely hate it. But stay tuned anyway, regardless of how you feel. Today's guest is S.B. Alger. S.B. Alger is a square flat earther and a non-practicing heavy metal magician. He's here today to talk about flat earth, how metal music encourages nihilism, how it's all tied to communitarianism, and especially the secret garden connection. Very interesting. We will find out about that. Let's go ahead and give him a call. It does look like it's almost time to talk to him. So why don't I just go ahead and dial? Okay, deal. Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, we got
You see me
video.
all right?
We got some video.
Yeah. My computer webcam isn't very good, so because I've been doing a lot of this kind of crap lately, I just went and bought a webcam. So.
And do you prefer?
I've got one on my other show that we've been doing every week, but I don't have a very good one at home. So.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. I won't be posting the video, of course, but good to see your expressions.
Yeah, I figure that doesn't hurt. You know, it's I like your picture. That makes me think of Lane Staley, man.
It's supposed to look like the Matrix. So do you prefer, should I call you SB or Sean or?
Yeah, go ahead and go with SB because that's just kind of like when I was young. I told myself if I was ever going to be a writer or a person who was in the public eye that I would go by SB. So that's what I went with when I came out and did that Flat Earth show with JF on Blood Sports. So
Cool. And SB, how have things been for you? Is there anything new or interesting in your world that you would like to go ahead and bring up first?
not really, man. Everything's going good. I feel like right before I did the blood sports thing, I'm gonna move this over here so I'm looking more at you. I did an interview with a really cool artist named Jesse Waugh. If you never heard of Jesse Waugh, you might check him out for your show too. He's the first guy that ever really brought the whole theory of nuclear bombs being fake. He's the man that really brought it into the forefront, like way back, like 2007 or something like that.
Now I've heard the whole nuclear bombs are fake theory, and I kind of looked into it, and there are things I have to admit that make a great deal of sense. Did you want to talk about that at all? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can. I'm down for whatever. The notes I have are just like something to reference in case it seems like we're kind of up against dead air, or we're just not. It's not like I didn't go make an outline like we're trying to follow anything. I figured we'd talk about Black Sabbath, talk about both like and heavy metal, and just kind of flow with it that way.
Yeah, for sure. This show I like to do a little bit differently. If we can go off the cuff, I like to, but we can also follow a format too. It just kind of, whatever's good that day.
Yeah.
This whole thing.
I mean, I'm kind of ready for both either way, Daniel. And that is your name, right?
Yeah, Daniel. That's fine. And let's talk about this now. The thing about nuclear weapons is it's very hard to prove they exist because so few people have really seen one go off. Most of us are only aware of pictures, aware of accounts, aware of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that supposedly got bombed, but it's very hard to prove with your own eyes.
Right, and I mean, me being I've always been pretty conspiracy minded, or I don't really subscribe to the idea of so many people take like the concept of coincidence for granted, like that everything is just that all of life and all of politics and the whole world all just kind of fall into place. I've always had a hard time with that, and the more that I hunker down and try and like give myself a reason to believe that it might be true, the less I believe it, I guess would be. I'm a person that doesn't, but I'm a flat earther. I don't believe nuclear bombs are real. I think for the most part that we're looking at just one elaborate hoax inside of another, and that we are kind of living in the Matrix or something like an open air prison, or like open air taxable prisons. Now super comfortable, nice, like more like Aldous Huxley and less like George Orwell, in my opinion. They've got us very soft and comfortable here, but it's still like nothing to me. Nothing is what it appears to be. I can't. But it's just like you said. How would we verify that nuclear fission is a real thing? Well, we'd have to be allowed to have access to and experiment with the concept and the process of the bomb ourselves, or at least be in proximity to the real test and be able to do something like compare it to traditional weaponry and then make a determination. To me, that's reasonable to desire that before you say, "Oh, I believe you."
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, up until I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, I had a very strong belief in Santa Claus, and I believed him to be a real person living in a house somewhere in the North Pole. And I didn't come into the understanding that Santa Claus is not a real, actual, physical being until I was told by my cousin, "Hey, Daniel, Santa Claus is fake. Your mom is lying to you." And then I proceeded to cry, and reality hit me. But who knows how many Santa Claus type beliefs that we have that we were told by our parents or told by school, they could be completely fake.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like usually when I I don't know. I find it very strange. I noticed that you're, I think the only show I really listened to, Daniel, before we hit this up today, was the Gregory Garrett. I'm trying to think of his last name. I bought that guy's book. It's amazing if you don't have a hard copy.
Oh, Gregory Garrett Lesson.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that's how I found you. I think I might have seen I'm kind of a podcast junkie, so I'll bounce all over the place. But I definitely intend to go look at more of your stuff that you've published. But the Magick idea. I've never been a practicing magician as far as having any ritual practice, but I certainly believe that what magicians, and I mean real magicians, not stage magic, I certainly believe that what they're reporting to us is true and genuine, and that it references, some form or connection to magic throughout the ages. And so that I'd say that most people, they automatically discount that, so then they think it's just ooga booga or woo woo. They don't realize that someone like Tracy Twyman, I don't know if you're familiar with her. I think when Tracy Twyman tells you she's using the Ouija board to contact other entities, that she's not making it up or lying. She's effectively using a tool that provides mediumship, And I feel like most people, some people will take a hard look at something like nukes or like flat Earth or any subject that's on that controversial tipping point where people want to become divided or be uncertain, and then they want to poo-poo it. I'm sure, in this, I'm sure you're up against that all the time. People, aliens, anything like this, all these subjects. Sometimes I feel like it really is that some people manage to break the magic spell or get out from underneath whatever, for lack of a better word, for whatever the spell is. And then they can see it. And other people, even if they try to look at the same identical evidence, they don't see it. They don't vibe on it. Like, oh, I looked into it and I think nukes are definitely real. Whereas I'm looking at it like, geez, I just can't give myself enough evidence through the research I am allowed to do, the limited research I'm allowed to do, to substantiate a position and say that I can believe in it, or that I don't believe in it.
Yeah. And you know what gets me about the nuke thing? Like I was telling you, I did kind of try my hardest to study it, even though most of this stuff obviously is just going to go way over my head. But the basic idea of the way a nuclear weapon works is they're taking two pieces of plutonium or uranium or two pieces of radioactive metal and slamming them against each other at a very high speed, and supposedly that's supposed to cause the reaction. And, I mean, who am I to say that that's going to cause a reaction or that it's not going to? It doesn't seem like it would, but I can't be totally sure unless I actually tried it myself. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if given the right circumstances, I would love to be more hands-on and involved, but definitely not to the point where it's me and you, because if it really is what they say it is, God forbid, it's too volatile, right? We don't want we don't want to be playing with it.
But at the same time, unless somebody actually tries it and puts it on YouTube, we pretty much just have to trust the scientists and the government, and how can we really trust them until there's a private party that actually takes a video of a nuke going off or really demonstrates it for us in a really easy to prove way. It's like, okay, maybe all those pictures are just models, and maybe it's just a bunch of hocus pocus and movie magic.
Yeah, and I think it is, man. There's I'll drop you a link after we do this, and it's funny we ended up on this subject because last night we've been doing a weekly variety show. I don't know if you caught that. Twitter to me is like trying to have a conversation in a loud bar or something. Like you never know for sure exactly who. People might like your tweet, but that doesn't mean they read it or opened it we've been doing a show every week, and we call it RX Only Picture Show, and it's like a real mishmash variety of crap. Like we're playing guitar, we're juggling, I'm playing with the yo-yo, we're talking about conspiracies, we're talking about politics, we're fielding questions from the chat. But we ended up talking about the same thing, and I remembered an amazing video by a Korean guy, and he's on Vimeo, not YouTube, and it's called Jinhan Park, and I'll link it to you after the show, man, so you can see, because to me, Jesse Waugh, that artist is amazing. I did an interview with him. That was the first real interview I ever did on the internet, was with Jesse Waugh. And he did a video called Nuke Lies. And Nuke Lies is really good, and it's really short. It's like 10 minutes. And Jesse Waugh is amazing, man. I would get him on your show, bro, if you're interested in more guests. He's in a similar vibe as what we're already covering, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of one of those people where, at least with the nuke thing, I'm like, okay, nukes are real, and then I look into them like, no, nukes are fake, and then I sort of, as time goes by, I start to just go along with everybody else again, and I'm back to thinking like nukes are real, but again, I just haven't seen proof one way or another, and it does kind of drive me nuts, because it really is the perfect way for these elite or these world leaders or these governments, whoever it is, however you want to label them, for them to just keep everybody under fear with the fear and control with the nuclear weapons that are so powerful, supposedly they can just destroy a whole city. I mean, who wouldn't be terrified of that?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, exactly. And I think it's really what you said is, to me, is a beautiful thing, man. You described what I call the process of falling back asleep, and I kind of pick on myself for falling back asleep. You know, like I've studied all this kind of stuff on and off over and over again in my life, and there's been some times when I felt like I've stumbled on the information that's too real and too legit, and I don't like it, and I want to step away from it. You know, like, oh man, I never want like hot evidence in my hands of someone very powerful doing things wrong. You know, I'm not trying to be an activist or a warrior, or, you know, I'm definitely all about disseminating information freely amongst each other. But that's really just so that people can have open dialogue and conversation. You know, I'm not an activist trying to be like, oh, we're going to expose people. Like, you know, me and you don't want like somebody to send us a box of paperwork that gives us dirt on people that are, you know, actively involved in something, because it's a huge liability, you know. And many years ago, I felt like I hadn't found anything that hot, but I found information about a guy named Peter Kawaja. If you've never heard of him, it's hard to find any information on that guy anymore because it's all scrubbed off the web. But he did like 24 hours of recording himself presenting evidence that he had collected, and then he edited it all down to 12 hours, and I had found just the audio of it. And so for a while, I stepped away from any kind of conspiracy research after I found that stuff. And then because I stepped away from it, I kind of forgot. Like you said, you know, you just start believing nukes are real, believing, you know, in satellites and the globe again. In my case, you know, that was one of the things I wrote a song about the flat Earth when I came back to flat Earth about the end of 2015, and I had forgotten that I'd stumbled onto flat Earth research like a long time ago, like 12 years ago, and I had actually believed that the Earth was flat, like way, way ahead of this whole trend that we're seeing now, and I forgot, you know, which is really weird, but it's kind of the same thing you described, so I'm glad you said that, you know.
Yeah, and exactly, flat Earth is another one of those things, because it's like, you see the evidence, you see the videos, and you conclusively decide that something's wrong. Earth is not round. It's not spinning through space at thousands of miles per hour. But then, you know, you get back into the flow. You start watching the TV, and you see stuff like Star Wars. And, I mean, who doesn't want to believe that Star Wars is real? I love Star Wars. And for there not to be space, it kind of sucks. It's depressing.
It is, because for a while after I stumbled back onto it, you know, I wrote a song about it. You know, a lot of the time, music. I don't know if you make art. I assume you do, but it'll just sometimes stuff will just come to you. Sometimes you have to work really hard at it, right? And so my little song, I played it on that Warski live stream I was on when I debated JF. I played it at the end. They gave me that chance to play him a song, and I thought that was cool. But it just came to me, like, you know, and it was partly like, oh, wow, I was laughing at myself because I had forgotten. And then at the same time, I'm like, oh, these fucking liars. They lied about, you know, the nature of the whole realm that we exist in. Like, you know, so you get pissed off, like, you jerks. And then, so for a while after that, I had a knee-jerk reaction to anything science fiction and outer space, you know, like, because me and my girlfriend watch movies, and, you know, of course, I went to Star Wars when I was 4 years old. My mom took me to the premiere, you know, and my whole family's been obsessed with Star Wars since, you know, I'm the oldest of my siblings. So, like, that's our thing, And so then to have it be like, you look at it and you're like, fuck this, Pardon my language, man. I'm trying not to drop no F-bombs.
No, I totally hear you. The thing with flat Earth, it's kind of shocking when you first really turn the corner and when you really start to accept it and believe it. It can kind of blow your mind and shake you up a little bit, just because it's so shocking. Just the idea and realizing that it was like this the whole time. It's not that the Earth suddenly became flat. It was always the way that it is, whether it's flat or it's round, but we have actually been hypnotized or deceived into believing it's one way or the other.
Yeah, that's back to that idea of a spell, that we're under a trick, that they get us to not believe our own five senses, that we take authority. To me, that's what most of these arguments come down to, whether or not you're willing to accept an argument of authority versus trusting your own five senses. And I'm shocked every day at how many people they'll have an angry knee-jerk reaction and vehemently argue against the evidence of their own five senses and defend or posit the position of some kind of authority, whether it be scientists or their own personal anecdotal experience or whatever. Blows my mind, dude. Because I even try to, when I don't try to come off harsh. I think, and I don't know if you watched the debate or not that I was on, but I tried to explain to people that I think they brought this whole thing out as a bring out. I don't think it's like an organic thing at all, that all of a sudden a bunch of people like Eric DeBay and Jeranism and Mark Sargent, Patricia Steer, and all these people suddenly just figured out the Earth was flat and started to promote it. I think that it's a complete op. So then it becomes really confusing if you try and talk to people. They're like, so you think it's a psyop? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, but you still think it's flat? And I'm like, yeah, I do. But I've the group that I'm in that has been studying, we have a totally different make, model, and understanding, and it's all based on us getting together and doing empirical research as a group. Like you pick a partner who's in Australia or who's in UK if you're in the United States, and you start to clock the moon and take synchronized photography, or you calculate exactly where the moon is greeting you on the horizon and then where it's setting every day, as many days as you can see it, and track it in the sky, and all these and same thing with Venus and some of the other more prominent planets in the sky and stuff. So we got this whole, it's a square flat Earth with a projection of more than one sun and more than one moon. So I try and break it down, especially without showing anybody pictures, and people are just tripping. They're like, "You're crazy, Sean," But I really think the whole circle map is just their straw man. That's their straw man, and you can see them now starting to set it on fire. They've got some channels that are really going hard at debunking the circle map. And if you jump in there and try and argue with them, they get all indignant and superior. And I think it's a controlled op on both sides, bro. I really do. I don't think it's organic at all. I think they've got guys like me and you looking at it, having to make our decision, which side are we on? So we choose a side, either we're definitely on the globe or we think it's flat, and then so we're kind of following the Pied Pipers on both sides, so that we're divided and disagreeing with one another over. I mean, it seems like they want us to disagree about everything, whether it's race or religion. Now it's the shape of the Earth, it's politics, it's things like abortion, like the aliens. All of it. They want us to never have common ground. That's the way I see the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there, people within the conspiracy community. They think that all the UFO stuff, all the alien sort of stuff is a psyop as well, that it's just disinformation being put out there to confuse us and make us think that there's aliens, when in reality there's no aliens. They're just artificial intelligence, or they're holograms, or they're demonic beings or something like that.
Yeah. And I noticed that you had Bill Cooper pinned on your page, because I used to love listening to Bill Cooper. I used to download I mean, I'm talking a long time ago now, but I used to, the whole Mystery Babylon series, I've recommended that to lots of people, and I used to tune into Hour of the Time and download all the old archives while I was working. Like, I used to list stuff for a guy on eBay, and I would just imbibe William Cooper. And that's kind of what, like, he started out being a alien believer. Did you ever read his book, the Behold the Pale Horse?
Oh yeah, I bought myself a copy a few years ago. It's definitely a classic in the field of conspiracy, and probably one of the best, if not the best, book that we've had on this stuff so far.
Yeah, and so in that he talks about how he was a naval intelligence officer, and he saw some fantastical, something like an alien spacecraft when they were out in the ocean that, like, if I remember it, like, it submerged from the water and flew around in the sky and then resubmerged. So it acted like an airplane and a submarine at the same time. And then he got all these documents from the government that were saying it was aliens. And then later he reversed his position and said he thought it was an op and that they were trying to groom him to promote aliens. So it's just like always mud in the water, right? Like if you can't trust Bill, if Bill Cooper either was being duped by the government, or if he's actually an agent, then by God, who do we rely on then? Right?
Yeah, it just goes on forever. It's like, okay, is it the aliens trying to make us think there's not aliens because there are aliens, or are there no aliens and they want to make us think that there are aliens because who knows? I mean, it just goes on and on. What came first, the disinfo or the alien?
That's good. That's a good quote, man. That's great. That's so true. Oh, that's why that you should check out my song, man. It's the first thing that's on my YouTube page, and it's the chorus of it is "Turtles all the way down," because that's like the cliche, right? That you've heard that old fable of the king coming out and explaining that the Earth is a globe now, and the little old lady arguing with the king and saying, no, the Earth isn't a globe. It's balanced. It's a disc balanced on the back of four elephants that are standing on top of a turtle. And so the king asks her, well, what's underneath the turtle? And she says, well, it's another turtle. And he says, well, okay, that's fine, dear lady, but what's underneath that turtle? And she says, well, you can't fool me, good king. It's turtles all the way down, And that's the joke of my chorus of the song, is that, like, it can't, you get it. I mean, I know you get it. It's an anachronism, right? Like, you can't have, there has to be something at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be just conspiracy, disinfo, alien, disinfo, all the way down. There has to be an actual answer here somewhere.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that don't add up about space. The idea that there's just this black void that goes on forever and ever. That's really no different than just saying it's infinite turtles, is to say that.
Right, yeah. That's one of the main, like, when people ask me why I think it's flat, that's what I tell them. I'm like, well, I don't see any easy way to measure, gauge, or show that there's definitely curvature. There's people arguing 24/7 now on the YouTubes about curvature, and if it was simple, cut and dry, you can see the curvature to my head. There's no debate, right? It's curved.
Yeah.
We could definitely measure it. So between curvature and the fact that the way water works where we are inside this realm, whatever it is, it always, if you let it settle and be still, it always settles. Like, I am not satisfied with the information available to demonstrate to me that this proves that we're on some kind of a globe, because the water is straight and flat, and there's how can I work with a vacuum at work? We have to use a vacuum to mix up some of the materials that we use. And, if you don't have the vacuum sealed properly, then it's not a vacuum, So what's this alleged boundary, this metaphysical boundary that they're claiming, that you just go out and the pressure decreases and decreases and decreases until it's zero? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The whole atmosphere would just dissipate into that vacuum. It would equalize itself. It wouldn't exist here like we have it, Seems like we're definitely inside of something, not, but who knows, right?
Yeah,
we don't have once again, we don't have the resources. Me and you don't get to, like, hey, toss us the keys to your rocket, Elon Musk, and me and Daniel are going to check it out real quick. We're going to go up so we can solve this.
Yeah, that's the frustrating thing about it. It's the same thing as the nukes. It's like, unless I can actually go into space and see what's going on with my own eyes, I have to rely on a very private, small organization. Even though it's being funded by billions of dollars, there's a limited number of people that work there. They're all on kind of a need-to-know basis. It's very compartmentalized. And really, there's no direct way for me to talk to anybody or actually prove that anybody's actually going up there into space.
Yeah, it's just not. And that's, I don't know, that I feel like that applies even on the way lower levels of not anything so extreme as nukes or the shape of the Earth. Like me and you wouldn't be allowed to understand just the very basic knowledge we would need to know to understand how the military works, how a bank works. It's all, like you said, it's all a cellular structure that's all honeycombed out. You know, they don't. The guy over here in this department is by rule and by law not allowed to know what the guy in that department is doing, because it's all checks and balances of safety, allegedly, right? You know, that everything's on a need-to-know basis. So the farther you go into the power structure, the more that increases. And so we don't, you know.
Yeah, I saw one video on YouTube where somebody tried to kind of prove it. They found the guy that made a part of the actual ships that they use. He made the little O-rings that seal the doors, and they talked to him, and the only thing that was in between the astronauts and the vacuum of space were these little rubber O-rings that look like something you'd see inside of a water bottle or a toy or something like that. It just does not seem like that would be enough.
Like when your hose is leaking out at the sprinkler, right, and you got to replace the little rubber ring so that it doesn't spray you when you try and turn it on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Are you kidding me, people? Rubber rings is all that's separating us from the vacuum of space and those things.
No, that was one of the good ones from Mark Sargent. I only went back and started really studying the people that are promoting flat Earth because of that blood sports debate. I had stepped away from it, and really we were only doing research in our private group, but I'm glad that I did, because there's a lot of, you always have to dig through the crap to find the pearl of great price, as they say, right? That's there's so much trash and garbage and BS and disinfo, and if you really want to study any subject and be searching to find answers, you have to look past what they just left sitting there for you. And I feel like that Mark Sargent episode, that dude was talking about how in really hardcore vacuums, how they're using these one-time use only aluminum or steel or whatever it was. They were a really sophisticated locking sealing mechanism. And then they're saying that that's not even what's in the space shuttle, and that there's supposed to be even more vacuum out in space than there was. That this guy's dealing with like massive vacuum pressure. I don't remember what he was working with, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same thing there,
Yeah, and there's another thing I did. I went and I tried to watch every video of rockets taken off or space, whether they're American or Russian, and every single one of them ended up looking like CGI or movie magic, even the Russian stuff.
Yep. That was the other thing that bugged me when I first came back to it, Daniel. That's exactly what that's one of the lyrics of my song. They'll switch to a CGI on the Never Switch It Back. And every one of them, you go to different space agencies and look. In the rocket launch, like all the camera angles are managed, so you never have a forward-facing camera and you never have a lateral-facing camera that looks way out at the horizon. And then as they get higher and higher, there's always like a quick blackout or like static. and then all of a sudden they're either inside the cabin only, or it's like so obviously CGI that you like feel embarrassed that you ever believed it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh crap, did I used to think that was space? Because now it just looks stupid, right?
Yeah, right when they get to the point where they go from within the atmosphere to being to the point where the Earth actually starts getting that curve, just like you said, it always blacks out, or they're static, or they switch cameras right at that moment, where all of a sudden, instead of facing forward, you're facing backwards. It kind of reminds me of pro wrestling when, to hide the punches or hide the slams, if there's not actual impact, they'll change the camera real quick to kind of hide the mistake.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you a story about going to pro wrestling when I was a kid, man, because it's totally accurate to what you're saying. It was a tag team match, and it was Randy Macho Man Savage, and my grandma used to let me and my best friend, when we were just grade school kids. Like they wouldn't even let kids do it nowadays. Like she would drop us off at Arco Arena in Sacramento, California, and we would just go line up and go to the wrestling match by ourselves when we were like, I don't know, how old is a fifth or a sixth grader, whatever age that is, 12 or 13. And I remember they made a mistake, dude, and like it was Black Bart, a tag team match versus Randy Macho Man Savage, and they threw Macho Man into the ropes, and Black Bart was a little bit bigger than him, and he put his, you know how they put the big boot up, and it's like they throw you in the ropes and then you're going to kick you in the face. Well, he accidentally kicked him in the face hard.
Okay.
Like they missed, their choreography was off, and Macho Man fell down, and he rolled out of the ring, and he's shaking it off, like he's overdoing the reaction, but you can hear it and see it. You can tell the difference when someone actually gets hit. And he stomped around outside the ring, and then he actually went and grabbed the mic and talked to the mic for 2 or 3 minutes, really loud, like he was really angry. But it's just because he was trying to recover, because he got kicked hard in the face, And so, he had a plan, he had a contingency for what if, and it's the same thing, right? They have their
exactly.
little contingency. Static or whatever it might be. There's always this little. There's the tell, as we might call it. There's the tell.
And then you have all these little mistakes they make, like the bubbles coming out of the helmet, the strings. You can easily see strings, or
they're hanging from harnesses.
Yeah, and then the fact that. This is going to be old stuff to the real hardcore flat earthers out there, but the fact that they're wearing these loose, baggy spacesuits out in what's supposed to be the vacuum of space, which should be strong enough to crush a can, it just doesn't make sense. You'd have to wear a suit of armor out there if you really wanted to obstruct the vacuum of space.
Yeah, that's it. I've always, since I came back to the flat earth, is just looking at the way that the spacesuits are designed. And have you ever seen the picture of the boot print that's allegedly on the moon versus the Neil Armstrong boot that's in the museum? The Neil Armstrong boot that's in the museum has the moon on the sole of the shoe, so that then technically he could say that he's standing on the moon. You know what I'm saying? If you've never seen that, you should look up the picture. Look up Neil Armstrong boot, because it's once again back to some kind of a trick or a gag that the boot that's in the museum has the moon embellished into the rubber of the sole. And so then Neil Armstrong can say, I'm standing on the moon. And he's telling the truth then, technically, because he's standing on, the effigy of the moon underneath his foot.
Yeah, and any of those pictures of the moon when the astronauts are actually up there, you don't see very far. It's like you'll see just a little bit of ground, and then you'll see this part that looks like it's smoothed over, like somebody went over it with an airbrush, and then you see the background. It looks very badly edited and smushed together, probably because that's all that they really had back then in terms of movie magic and fakery, was the much shittier looking stuff.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. I think that the part of the reason that they brought Flat Earth out is because of that, because people already, for a long time, have already been super suspicious of the moon landing and talking about it for years. And I remember they even had regular TV documentaries doubting it, just on network TV back in the day. So I think that they know that their fakery has a shelf life, because if you look at the moon landing with new eyes, the lunar module leaving the moon is one of the hokiest B movie shitty looking things. It's so bad. The camera actually pans. It shows the little spaceship jump up, and it's supposed to be jumping into space, and it's going to reconnect with the rocket, whatever it is, the Apollo rocket that's going to take them back, so that or back to the lunar module, right? But it jumps up and leaves, and the camera pans to follow it in the footage. It's like, how could this possibly, for one thing, they're leaving a camera behind on the moon that's running, and somehow it pans to follow the rocket. Like, we don't have technology like these webcams and stuff nowadays that trace you and track you and follow you around the room. Well, who's the cameraman that they left behind on the moon, right?
Yeah, and another thing that gets me is with these space probes that they supposedly send out, where they're shooting off this rocket, and then this probe goes out, and then supposedly it friggin' slingshots around another planet, and then goes and travels to another planet where it slingshots around and goes and travels out through space. It's like, come on, give me a break. There's no way that this thing that you're shooting out there is doing all these complex maneuvers.
Yeah. It's like Michael Jordan on a fast break, right? And is heading to Saturn.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't doubt these guys that work at NASA are smart. I don't doubt that they can figure out the trajectories and all that. But come on, that's not all going on one after the other way out there. I mean, come on. It's just unbelievable.
It is, man. So tell me about how I was going to ask you, what's your preference? What's your definition of heavy metal? Like what kind of metal do you consider to be, like, the debate between heavy metal and rock and roll people, like, usually, like, there's a limit as to what, like, if someone says, "Oh yeah, I like heavy metal. I listen to well, I was trying to think of a good example of who would be, like, I listen to Nickelback, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean, like. So what would you consider, like, the most metal, or what's your favorite stuff, man?
Yeah, that's a really tough question to answer because, that's it looks like somebody's actually calling. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hey there, Todd.
What's going on, Daniel?
Not much, just talking to our guest, SB. Did you want to say hi to him?
Hey, SB.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, so good. I'm just sitting here listening to your conversation. I was going to let you guys just keep talking and then try to catch you at the end, but once you got into the flat Earth thing, I didn't want to miss that topic, so I decided to jump in.
Yeah, for sure.
Couple of thoughts on that. I have the same exact view, SB. It's very interesting. I don't know you, you don't know me, but wow, fuck yeah. Number of issues, I feel the same way.
Yeah, well, I feel like I put in enough time in, like, almost 3 years of looking at it that I'm not afraid anymore to bring it out, and I feel like I've built a confident enough repertoire to say, okay, now if people want to confront me, they want to talk about it, Whereas I think there's probably hundreds of us out here that they're just waiting until they feel like, okay, I've got enough answers now off the top of my head that because I talk.
Ask you a question.
Of course.
Before I ask you or talk about the flat Earth, points. I was just thinking as you were talking earlier. How old are you?
42.
42.
Yeah.
Where are you? Where are you from?
Oh, I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not too far from Daniel here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys are up there. All right. On that flat, not flat Earth, but the moon landing thing. Back in the 1990, there was somebody put out a book. His name is Bill Casing, called "We Never Went to the Moon," and it wasn't even a book. It was like photocopied pages they folded over by Bill Casing, and it was all the examples of reasons why this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And it was in 1990. You could buy this for $2 at these conspiracy shows where Bill Cooper was going around, and I saw him. That's why Bill Cooper's big on this show, by the way, SB. We've talked about him for so many years.
Yeah. I've always liked Bill Cooper, man. I always appreciated and studied his work. The only real criticism I ever had of him was the JFK stuff, but other than that, I always liked all of his stuff.
Well, I bought him. Every time he came to my town, I went and seen him and got a signed copy of his Behold the Pale Horse and talked to him personally, at the time. He was committed back then to telling you what the hell he'd seen, so that's cool that you acknowledge him. Because, that Behold the Pale Horse changed the conspiracy scene to a degree, because he talked about things nobody'd ever, you didn't see in book form, even in conspiracy books and stuff.
Yeah, I remember, yeah, go ahead, man. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Call 777 come out with lunar wave theory a while back. Talk about he caught something. People were believing they'd caught evidence that way. And then there was people that started noticing the positions of the moon were changing dramatically from night to night. And so scientists come out and said, well, the Earth's wobbling. That was the best, excuse I heard. I went out one night and looked at the moon, and it was in one position at 8:30, and I said, I'm going to calculate where it is tomorrow.
Yep.
And I went out the next night, man, it was all the way across the exact same time. I'm going, is this me, or, did the moon just move over frickin' 10 feet at the same time? Or one night over.
No, that's exactly what we're finding in that group I was talking about. It's not a well-known group. It's not like Globe Busters or these guys that are so well-known or promoted. That we're finding anomalies like that. Like you watch the moon and it seems consistent, and then from one night to the next you're getting like anywhere from 10 to 30 degrees jump. From its position in the sky, just in less than
the time that they're giving us for our clock, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you could say, maybe their clock is not really a celestial clock. Your mind could do that number. But on the never going to the moon thing, when I seen that book, I bought it in 1990. It had pictures of the astronauts on the moon, just black and white, cheap photocopy images. But it had the moon lander, and it said, we're told the moon is made of dust, the surface, because so many comets and asteroids have been hitting it. It's got 4 inches or 4 feet of dust.
Right.
But the moon lander can come down with a fiery rocket and carefully land, but there's not even a crater of dust anywhere around it. And then the astronauts are stepping out for the first time into the 4 feet of dust, and they just leave a perfect imprint like you might in a desert anywhere in the United States. And then the other thing that they mention in that book is, notice how the pictures of the astronauts, they have these fantastic pictures of them up close in their shields, and they're walking there. But they don't give you none of the details that you really need to make out if it's real in the background. All you see is the romantic images of us reaching the height. And the most suspicious thing, and this wasn't in the book, this is what I say now, is we went there back then, they figured it out. We did it so many missions, and we never went back.
Yeah,
since 1972. You're like,
and they lost all the telemetry, and that's their statement, not ours. That people say, hey, well, what about all the data? Show us the math and the telemetry. They're like, oh, we lost it. Like, really?
there's so many anomalies where you go, well, either there's these fantastic odds that what they're telling us is true, or something else is going on. And you can't, that book didn't say the Earth was flat. It just said the astronauts probably didn't go there. We never went there. And I could see these governments pretending to spend all of our money that they really went there, but they really couldn't get out. Because there was a lot of tests where they tried to get through the Van Allen belt. And they recorded on, scientists attempting to get astronauts through the radiation belt, and then lots of Russian videos were released. Or
Yeah, it's
not,
funny how the Russians they brought the Russians back around, huh, Todd? Hey,
yeah, they could never.
I was going to ask you. As far as so we got flat Earth. We were talking about nukes. I assume you heard us talking about that too. I'm starting to think that these are markers for when you get to a certain level of playing the game of global chess, or the great game, or whatever you want to call the world, the world theater, the world at war, the theater of war, or they call it realpolitik. I'm starting to think that maybe nuclear bombs, a space program, that these are like the same as having a Rolex watch and a $5,000 suit. This is what a big time world government needs to if you're going to shill and
really
fake
rip us all off.
Yeah, they rip us all off, but I think that it's a marker among each other, like being a part of the Antarctic Treaty, having a space program, having nuclear weapons. These are all signs that it's like a wink and a nod. Maybe that's like the big-time secret handshake, is to have these.
That's the secret, that they're making a bunch of money behind the scenes, shaking hands, going, oh, yes, we're rich.
Yeah, they're thumbing their nose at us, and it's all a big backroom deal and a laugh. It's a laugh.
And then at least in the case of nuclear weapons, it also gives them a reason to go in and invade countries that they don't like. If they don't like what's going on, they have a reason to go in there.
Right. I mean, we're seeing it right now, allegedly, right? With Trump's backing out of the tree.
Baloney.
They're saying all this stuff. And I'm really disappointed when I talk to people about nukes that they don't consider that it might be fake more easily, because it's such good news if the bombs aren't real. To me, that's like, I can understand, not wanting to believe the Earth is flat, because, geez, that's really hard to swallow, and that sucks. That means we've been lied to in such a phenomenal way that it's like almost impossible to internalize. But if we find out that nuclear bombs aren't actually a real thing, this is terrific news. This means that we can't annihilate each other. This means we can't just vaporize whole cities and populations off of the map, and that we're not going to suffer nuclear winter and all of these kind of things. So it really shocks me to see how deep people are under these magic, these spellings.
I kind of understand what you mean, SB. This show's called End of Days Radio, where we sit and hypostulate the end of days from every angle and get every person possible's opinion on that subject. So you're perfect here.
And you would think that with nukes, you would think that they would use maybe small ones as fireworks every once in a while to just demonstrate them, maybe at the Olympics or before some major event. Why don't we have some multicolored mini nukes go off up in the atmosphere just to show us their spectacular power? What's up with that?
Oh, no, I agree totally. Cool. That's been really suspicious to me for a long time. Is like, why don't they drop more of them? How come we have no demonstrability of these things? Where's the proof? Where's something showing us?
I don't want to take up too much of your time. I gotta get you on the music now, because you said, so what kind of music are you guys into? Oh, we love Black Sabbath and heavy metal, and the world's gonna end kind of anything really cool.
Yeah.
And then we want to hear all about Black Sabbath and talk all about it with you for 1 minute.
Well, I had this article. Have you guys heard this? Check this out, Todd. Okay, so when I was prepping for the show with Daniel, I went and found this old article here. Let's see if I read through it, so I could probably do it from memory. But yeah, I'll just do it from memory instead of pull it up with the browser. So it's like from the 70s, and it's an interview with it's two different interviews actually, and it's all documented on one web page. And if you type in 1970s Ozzy Osbourne against Magick or against Satanism, he talks about how Black Sabbath changed their name. I don't know how much you guys know about the history of Black Sabbath, but they used to be called Earth, and they were a blues band. They were kind of like Elvis Presley blues.
Yeah, I know that. I knew that. Right. I knew that. Yeah.
Right, and so they changed their name from Earth to Black Sabbath because they wanted to copy Vincent Price's strategy of having a more horror show, but that they weren't actually they weren't practicing magicians, they weren't believing in magic, and that a lot of other bands were, like Jimmy Page was very much a Crowleyite and a Thelemite and doing that kind of stuff. And
how about Coven?
Yeah. I think that band was mentioned specifically in the article. Either that or Daniel mentioned.
Their album was called Black Sabbath, and Ozzy was the guitar player in that band.
Oh, okay. See, now, I mean, I've read. I'm a heavy metal singer and a guitar player, and have been. I don't really do.
I'm a singer, but not a guitar player.
Yeah. So
I do the intro for the show. That's why I'm calling in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I typed in end of days with Todd, and so I think I'm looking at a picture of you here with your arms folded. Your last name must be Miller.
It is, yes.
But
crazy like that.
So no, that's cool. I mean, if this is a show you guys are doing, I'm glad to talk to both of you, of course. But
yeah,
I was
we're trying
curious
to expand people's conscience with this.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm out here doing it too. Is to not because I'm trying to be an activist or ring the alarm bell like somebody like Alex Jones, but just bring people more information, give them an opportunity to consider more, to have a more open mind, I guess, or at least consider more points of view, you know.
Yeah.
But
who doesn't love that or couldn't benefit from that?
So you guys are more old school metal guys like me. See, I was a '90s metal guy, so like Pantera, Megadeth, Metallica, Sepultura, Alice in Chains. I really loved Alice in Chains, even though I don't consider them truly metal. They were more hard rock grunge. But I really loved Lane Staley, you know.
That's because you were coming up right there in that period. Daniel's just a hair behind you, 5 years behind you, so he missed the Nirvana, he missed the Alice in Chains probably.
My generation was just
10, 15
past the grunge era. I was in junior high school right after Kurt Cobain died, and at SB, before Todd came on, you asked me where would I draw the line between like rock music and heavy metal, and that's a real tough question to answer. I don't really consider like grunge rockers metal, or even a band really like Led Zeppelin. I wouldn't consider that metal, although some people would say Led Zeppelin is metal music. It's really hard. I think you reach a point where it becomes hard rock instead of metal, and I'm sure you'll have a few bands that are stuck right there in the middle of that too.
Yeah, I agree totally that I don't think, I mean, I know people call Led Zeppelin heavy metal, but they're just a really heavy rock and blues band, you know. I'd say Black Sabbath would be, in my opinion, the very first really popular big time heavy metal band, you know.
But I would say that. Go ahead, Todd.
Go on, Daniel. No, go on, Daniel.
Oh, I was just going to say that Led Zeppelin, the only song that I would really definitely say is heavy metal is the song Kashmir.
Yeah, the Kashmir has a really heavy metal vibe to it. I agree.
No, I'll counter both of you on that, because when Led Zeppelin came out with "Want a Whole Lot of Love," they were figuring out that who needs to laugh. They didn't quite have metal down yet, but they were. What it was Britain had like the Tavistock Institute, where they were working with using music to spread an influence, to spread a message. They've always been involved in the intelligence agencies and changing consciousness and being at the highest levels of cultures in our societies. And so they were doing the Beatles, they were bringing up Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. The British invasion was their invasion of our country and the world with the consciousness and the music. They picked the baddest bands and they worked the messages in through the intelligence agencies. Timothy Leary and John Lilly and all those guys in America, they were, products of earlier models, Aldous Huxley, and, even earlier they were taught. Once they discovered LSD and they started experimenting with the drugs and the mind control, they were all into the message of how to change culture, because they realized you could change people's consciousness a long time ago. They've been weaponizing what they've learned.
Yep, I agree. That's what it is. It's almost all culture is created ahead of us. It's created for us to affect the way that we act and react in the world. And so then you've got us three guys, we all took the heavy metal uniform, and maybe these guys over here, they took the punk rock uniform, and then those guys over there, they took the outlaw country and western uniform, and then we all think we're individuals and that we've taken on some kind of a personality that we chose, when really all
a
we did
little
was
badge that makes us feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, and really we just chose one of their outfits, you know.
Oh, totally. Identity for those people that don't know how to find themselves.
Yep. And that's
pass out badges and little clicks to people that never realize you have a self. You own yourself. That's the thing. You own you. A lot of people they'll never know that.
Yep, that's true. So have either one of you guys ever heard of communitarianism? Because that's one of the main things.
Yeah, that's kind of socialist, communist. Come on, everybody, let's get hippies.
Well, it's similar to that, but I try and point it out to people because there's an amazing researcher. Her name's Nikki Rapana, who did a ton of research. She's really kind of stepped away from it. She kind of got jaded, as you do, doing this stuff for a long, long time, and nothing happens, right? You get burnt out. But if you take a look at communitarianism versus communism or anything else, there's actually, if you type in communitarian law, you'll actually find results in all of the what we call global governance. You know how they're always talking about the New World Order and the one world government. Well, communitarianism is the one thing that you'll find results where, you know, like if you type in New World Order laws, you get all kinds of crap, but you don't find like documents, PDFs on the UN's website or on some government, non-governmental organization is, over here they're preaching or professing this or this book or that document, like Agenda 21 is, that's totally communitarianism, man. So if you guys haven't used that specific word in some searches, I'd say toss it in there because you get a whole bunch of different stuff.
Personally, I know all about the Agenda 21, the United Nations, the New World Order. It's here. It's wrapped around us. You got 5G coming in soon.
Yep,
Every device is spying and listening to you and sniffing and being fed to giant data centers.
Yep.
And then AI.
The fusion centers. Yeah, the fusion centers.
Yeah,
so if you're already studying that stuff,
newest one.
You got to add that. If you're searching for that stuff, you got to add that word in there for fun, man, because you'll find it adds that extra specific layer to your results.
And I don't even want to go there because they might visit me because I live right next to the big giant data center.
Oh, you live next to the
biggest
fusion
one
center?
in Utah, the biggest one, the newest, most giant. Yeah, it's scary as you drive by it.
All right, Todd.
Yeah.
Todd, thanks for the call.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, buddy. I'm gonna go ahead and continue the interview with SB.
Thank you, guys.
And I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Sounds good.
All right, bye. So SB, communitarianism, is this something that you support?
Absolutely not. No. I would definitely take an anti-communitarian position. I think it's another one of these facilitated hoaxes. But I'd say the reason I take it so seriously is because unlike you'll hear people say technocracy, right? You hear this word thrown around a lot when they're talking about the way the world is developing with the Internet of Things, with everything having you have a smartphone, now you've got a smart washer and dryer, you've got a smart refrigerator, you've got Alexa sitting on your countertop, so you've got all these smart devices, like the cars we drive in now. If you have a new car, you know what I mean. All of that integration that you hear them call it technocracy, but if you type technocratic law in quote marks into a search, you're not going to get results that show an actual legal document or the process of creating technocratic law. If you do the same thing with communitarianism, you will find results, and you'll get a better lead on the what I would call the system of global governance that they're pretty proud of. They're creating it. I think they're proud enough to say that they're almost done with it. The plan, if you look at the plan, it was always 2020 was the plan to have it mostly implemented, and it looks like they're right on schedule, unfortunately. But I feel like if we're stepping away from an old paradigm and into a new one, and we can't stop it, then at least we can be as well informed as we can get to know what we're, if they're going to just lay a wet blanket over the top of us, we want to know what it's wet with, and that's the reason I bring it up to people, not because I think we can go out and fight it. I don't think we can fight it and stop it, but I think it's good that people be aware of the language and the words that they're using. You know, if they're using their spelling, quote unquote, against us, then I want to know what that spelling is specifically, and not call it Alex Jones's New World Order or the global government or technocracy. When if you actually look at communitarianism versus those kind of terms, instead of getting spooks and scare tactics and vague answers, instead you get really specific details on how and why Agenda 21 works together with things like international law. It'll start to clear everything up and kind of make the puzzle fit together better, you know.
So this is directly related to the transhumanist movement.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say there's actually there's a set. If I remember, there's a set of transhumanists that specifically call themselves communitarians, like that. You know, that's part of their ideology, and they actually use that word specifically. That they're trying to create a more communitarian future, and to have like what do they call it, a transtopian future, you know. So instead of utopia, it's a transtopia where we kind of meld and become one with the machine, you know.
Yeah,
and
you know,
I
got on this. I got the VR headset for the PS4. And I don't use it very much lately because it was making me feel a little nauseous, but I swear that's got to be the next level in gaming, computers, whatever. I mean, once you try it, there's nothing else like it. It's almost like the first time you ever played Super Mario Brothers or any other video game. I can absolutely see us getting very, very addicted as a species to virtual reality.
Yeah, I've never tried it. I've stuck one on my head just one time real quick, but not any full immersion where I could play a game, you know, just like, I'm sure if you have one, you know what I mean, like you put it on and there's the little demo display where it's like showing you the inside of a cell or a blood vessel, or, you know, you're just looking around, but you're not interacting with the environment. But just that, I was so amazed that I can only imagine what it's like if you're racing or you're fighting or you're exploring. And I mean, it sounds to me like, well, like their plan is like they've got all the tools in place to really make it so people accept their position and be perfectly happy to, like, you know, just get hella stoned or something and put on your VR, and who cares if you live in a ratty trailer, because inside the helmet it's all beautiful. And that have you checked out that movie or that book, Ready Player One?
Oh no, I'm definitely gonna check it out when it comes out on Blu-ray.
Me and my girlfriend listen to books when we're on the road, if we're going on a road trip or something. And so we started listening to that. We haven't finished it yet, but it's all about that, about how they're already all the way into the future where everybody has what you call haptic feedback gloves and visors. And so everyone's addicted to being inside this place, and it's called the Oasis. And it's just exactly what you're describing. That, you know, the real world is just like shot. It's just a complete dystopia. It's just destroyed, you know. And so everybody like just drudges through life as much as they can to get enough time and effort to get into the VR world, and everything happens. Everyone goes to school in there, and so yeah, I don't think they're joking. I think they're serious. They're bringing this. You know, this is going to be the future for our kids and for us if we live that long.
Yeah, and you know, SB, it's my opinion that the way that they're really going to get the entire human race hooked and sucked into the machine is by using sex, because sex sells better than anything. And once you can create that level of an immersive experience, I mean, all these frustrated guys that, you know, can't get a date on Friday night, I don't need to get a date anymore. I could just jump in the VR world and have some kind of crazy three-way orgy with a couple Playboy Playmate supermodels and forget having to actually court a woman or anything like that.
Yeah, the real solution to the cliche of the incel, right? Everybody gets their VR helmet and their really fancy haptic gloves, and as long as you got your $30 to put the credits in the machine, then, you know, instead of watching some porn on the internet, you can just have it be full immersion. And it's funny you say that because, you know, the whole blood sports thing, Andy Worski's one of the big guys. I don't know how familiar you are with that whole community, but Andy Worski's one of the big guys, and there's a running joke in all of their little interviews about, and he's got a girlfriend, you know, but he's still like, he's struggling. He's literally struggling, and he's a very open and honest guy, maybe to a fault even. But he talks about how he had downloaded so much VR porn that that he stepped away from it and did NoFap for like a month or for 3 weeks or something, and now he's back messing around with it again. And so his co-hosts and his friends are like picking on him, like, "Oh, Andy's back on the VR porn," you know. And it's all lighthearted and funny, but at the same time, once it becomes, you know, you got early adapters, guys like that, the people that are going to be the first ones to buy it, try it, you know. But in the long run, I mean, most dudes I know, some look at porn a lot, some look at porn hardly at all, but almost all of them have done it or definitely, you know exactly how to get it if they want it. So if we project that 5 or 10 years into the future, I would say, yeah, it's terrifying to think of, you know, like, oh, like, man, I want, you know, like 2 Asian girls or an Asian girl and a redhead, or, you know, and you just go and fancy it up. And you got your fancy headset, and then your fancy device that fastens on the other part, and here we go. and who needs to have a family, and who needs to have kids, and who needs to have a real girlfriend, right?
Yeah, and it's
crazy.
Scary.
It's just crazy.
It's scary to me because social skills are something that we have to learn. It's something that we learn in school. Like, one of the major reasons people send their kids to public school is so they can pick up on those basic social skills. And you're not going to learn them if your face is stuck in your smartphone all day, or if you're stuck in VR, or even if you're playing other video games. People are more inclined to text message each other or use FaceTime or do things like that than, you know, go down to a speakeasy and have a drink and actually get to know people face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that's probably the only benefit left in school, in my opinion, is the idea that you get to learn how to socialize, because the school system's so wonky and fucked up. I mean, it always was, but now it's worse than it ever was in a way. And so, and now we're not even doing that. Now you see a group of kids walking down the street, and they're literally all staring at their phones while they're crossing the street. You know, like I feel like I've finally become that old grumpy guy. Like, you know, look up from your phone and pay attention. Watch where you're going, you kids, you know.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I become more and more out of touch. I hear some of these words that they're using, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm constantly looking up new words. I try to keep up with it all, but just to get a laugh out of the young people that I know, that, you know, that they're shocked that I understand some of their memes and their weird, you know, like, so I'm constantly on Urban Dictionary trying to understand what am I seeing on Facebook from my nieces and nephews or all that kind of stuff. It's so funny and strange, you know.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about is metal music encouraging nihilism. How does that work?
Well, I would say that that Black Sabbath is actually probably the exception to the rule. Like, I mean, if you listen to and follow the lyrics of Black Sabbath closely, because I really did do a lot of rock and roll and heavy metal singing when I was younger, and I still perform and play a lot of music. And being the singer, like, you have to know what they're really saying. You know, it's not like the bass player or the drummer who can just kind of know that the lyrics kind of half-assed, you know, to really know it. And Ozzy, for the most part, is he's being pretty genuine and honest about struggling with drugs and alcohol and sex in his life. And he's, for the most part, singing about being against it, especially back in the Black Sabbath days. But I'd say if you go to something like even Alice in Chains, who I love Alice in Chains, they're almost more condoning. Now, if you get into the interviews and the minutia of their explanation for why it seems that way, it's different. But if you just take it on its surface value, like a song like Junkhead by Alice in Chains is pretty much straight encouraging you to get high as hell and not care, you know. It's like bragging about how much hardcore drugs you can do. I mean, the song's actually about heroin. So that's, you know, I'm sure a lot of kids probably were encouraged, not understanding that the album or the concept of the album Dirt by Alice in Chains, for example, was it was like telling you the whole journey of like being introduced to drugs and getting hooked on them and being proud and happy to do them, and then eventually like falling from grace and, you know, in Lane Staley's example, actually literally dying of your drug addiction, you know, not getting out of it. as far as a stark example, he's a great example. And so how many kids were like me listening to that, jiving on it, and were more naive or were more interested to actually take action based on what they were hearing? And so now even beyond nihilism, you've got destruction. But I feel like most really heavy music, it's kind of angsty, angry, and with no solution. It doesn't offer any kind of encouraging solution. And I'm saying that as a person who I still listen to heavy metal sometimes. I still dig on it. I'm not putting it down or trying to be like everybody burn your CDs or nothing, or delete your MP3 player, I guess nowadays. But it definitely seems like it's always kind of. I think that's kind of the nature of all music, but metal. Maybe metal was trying to capture us guys that were more angsty and angry, and allow us to vent that anger, but also at the same time to not really do anything with it more than to be pissed off. And then if you get really pissed off and you don't solve the problem, then you feel this sense of depression or I don't give a damn, like, oh, well, whatever. And I feel like that's another step in the process of kind of what they want, I'd say for the pop music, for the girls and the guys that like the pop music, so it's more like hedonism instead of just straight nihilism. Maybe they still don't care, but it's not like a focus on not like most of the guys I know that were hardcore metalheads literally didn't care. Kind of like your show, the title of your show, like End of Days, like we're waiting on the end of the world. You're like, when's it coming? Like we're looking at a watch, right? Like let's go. We thought it was going to be over by now. Where is it at?
Yeah, I get kind of annoyed because I'm waiting and waiting.
Right, and so I feel like that's something that we probably gained from the social conditioning of our preference for dark, heavy music, was that we were promised the end of the world, and damn it, where is it? We're still expecting it,
Yeah, it does seem like there was a time period where a lot of the music was very anti-war, very peace and love, and then just like you say, it seems like the theme kind of changed and it became kind of like life sucks and it sucks, that's it.
Yeah, it sucks, and then like, okay, so we better like get high and drink and have sex and not care, so you end up with this bacchanalia, this hedonism, I see that a lot. And so I don't know. I feel like, have you ever checked out Dave McGowan's work? I listened to most of that book. It's called Strange Scenes from the Canyon.
No.
From Laurel Canyon. You never checked that out? Oh yeah, check it out, man. That's all about the hippie movement and how those people are all of the main hippies that you've ever heard of, and all the big bands like the Doors and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all of them, the Byrds, and on down the list. They're all connected to military intelligence. They're all, it looks like it's all an op, That's pretty much the gist of the book, is he just goes over and over again like how they're all connected to different murders and suicides. They're all connected to military intelligence. They're all connected to dealing drugs and LSD and cocaine. And it's just crazy. Yeah, Dave McGowan, Strange Scenes from the Canyon. If you've never checked that out, man, definitely look it up.
Yeah, I'm just very I just have a very vague sort of outline understanding of this stuff. I do know that the Grateful Dead, it gets a lot of these accusations, and I believe the manager for the Grateful Dead was also Courtney Love's father. So that's kind of a connection, a bizarre connection there.
Yeah, I think that's right. That might even be in that book. But yeah, and that supposedly that the dead are all that they're all Masonically connected to is another thing. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but that's that they're all Masons. Like to me, when I first found that out, I was like, wow, really?
Yeah, that goes hand in hand with intelligence, because those intelligence networks are tied right there hand in hand with these secret societies.
Yeah, it's all, and the occult too. That was another thing, is like all these years of studying like heavy metal, and of course you start looking at heavy metal, and a lot of them, like bands like Tool, is really, there's an esoteric and occult quality to a band like Tool. And then you look into it closer, and it's like intelligence agencies and the occult have been tied to each other like forever, like all the way back to John Dee and Queen Elizabeth I. And so it's like the alchemists and the magicians all like changed their robes from big wizard clothes like the in your picture here. You know, you got the sun, moon, and stars curtain behind you. Like they all used to dress like that. And so then instead they all go put on their 3-piece suit or nowadays their lab coat. But really, they're still just magicians. They're magicians casting spells and working ritual magic to influence and create some kind of a society around us and manage us.
One thing that bothers me a little bit, being a fan of rock music, heavy metal, etc., it just, ever since probably the MP3 started coming out, it really feels like rock and heavy metal has died off quite a bit. Most of what you see, it's not even really rap music anymore at this point. It seems like all that's left is pop music. Do you feel there's any rock music or rock bands that are still relevant, and how do you see the future going for rock and metal music?
Yeah, I've tried a few times to dig into it, but I don't really adopt any new musical tastes. The only band I could say that I've really taken up that's new is you call it Blackgrass. Have you ever heard of The Devil Makes Three? Is what they're called?
No, but sounds interesting.
It is, man. It's still like a traditional bluegrass band. You know, they play with an upright bass. There's a girl who plays upright bass, and they play acoustic guitar and banjo, and usually they have a fiddle player. And when I saw them live, they had a drummer, but in a lot of the recordings, there's no drummer. And so it's like really still dark, almost heavy metal-ish lyrics, but then the music is kind of like upbeat bluegrass, only it's still in minor keys and kind of dark. So it's kind of almost like a cross between heavy metal and bluegrass, but it's not aggressive like metal, you know. It's not like Megadeth or Metallica or anything like that, you know.
Did you say at the beginning that you were a guitar player?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a guitar player.
What type of guitar do you play?
Well, right now I mostly just play the acoustic guitar. I've got like a pretty nice older 70s Yamaha that I play, and I do have a nice Martin & Company acoustic guitar, like that's called a double aught 16, and that's like a dark mahogany, or pardon me, walnut. It's a dark walnut cover guitar. I had a pretty fun 3-piece band that we played in. It was called RX Only Panacea. That's why my new variety show is called RX Only Picture Show. If anybody wants to check it out, that's what's on my YouTube every Wednesday is RX Only Picture Show. And that's us just being like, doing all kinds of goofy stuff. But the band before that, RX Only Panacea, was like a 3-piece progressive rock and roll band. And we kind of combined the heavy metal and all the more grungy stuff. And then like we got pretty obsessed with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and especially with John Frusciante. And so that's why I bought that other acoustic, more expensive Martin guitar, because I was copying John Frusciante's style. And you know how it is, you get obsessed with something and you start to integrate it into your thing. And we all did that as a band. We became completely obsessed with John Frusciante. I still love it. That's one of the main things I'll put on if I'm just going to, I feel, to kind of bring it full circle back to what we've been talking about, I feel like kids today, not only are they missing out on the similar kind of music experience that we had when we were younger, and I guess I'm just a little bit older than you, but still, I'd say that you're still in the same era enough that we listened to whole albums. You would put on a whole album, and you would dig on that album, and maybe you'd listen to that album over and over. Like I had that album I was talking about, Alice in Chains' Dirt. I had it in my CD player for a year straight and almost never took it out because that was my gig, I'd get stoned and just sit there and listen to Dirt. If I had to clean up my kitchen or do homework or whatever when I was in college, I would just listen to Alice in Chains' Dirt over and over again. And I feel like it's gone back to like a singles market, like back in the days of 45s, where everybody listens to single tracks or just A, B sides. It's not really A, B sides, it's MP3s off the internet, but it's, there's lots of singles and almost no whole albums. So
have you tried any psychedelic drugs?
I have, man. I have. I don't advocate it or do it anymore. I think that that's another part of the whole conditioning and another part of the magic spell. If you've never checked out Jan Irvin's research over at Gnostic Media, he's got a lot of information about all of the counterculture, the hallucinogens. He wrote an amazing article called Entheogens, What's in a Name? and he does it's really well cited and it's good research. Now I have other problems with Jan Irvin as a researcher too. I like he's kind of an annoying individual, and I have a hard time with him. I really do, and lots of people do. And he kind of has a reputation of making friendships with people and having them as guests and then burning bridges. So that makes you suspicious. But I'm not ready to or willing to call nobody an agent or anything. That's just such a cliche.
Yeah, I don't think he's an agent. I have had one experience with Jan. I invited him on the show, and he got very angry at me and said that I was a disinformation agent and this and that. But I don't take it really personally. I just kind of laugh about it and tell people that story.
He does that to everybody. He thinks every person he's ever called an agent is somebody that he's exposed, and I think he's just kind of I think they've kind of duped him, and I hate to say that, but I try and have sympathy on Jan, even though I can't really enjoy his content like I used to. But I got so much from him, and I learned about so many people through him that I would never disrespect him. But at the same time, like I feel like we're witnessing what happens when they try and manage and control someone that's trying to tell the truth. Like he was totally advocating for. He was a mycologist and studying the mushroom, and he was promoting the works of the man, whoever the holy mushroom and the cross, and then in his research he started to stumble onto a lot of these guys were intelligence connected, and then the more he looked, the more all of them were it looked like to him, and so he started to rechange the focus of his research, and then they all turned against him, and so then you have like. You create like this paranoid and knee-jerk and emotional reaction from someone because they thought they were headed down a certain path, and it was a path that looked like it was going to be a path towards pretty big success probably. And then he reversed his position 180 degrees, called all these guys out. They all turn around and as a group kind of in one voice attack him. And I think what we're seeing is kind of like the long-term damage that now everybody's an agent because when he thought it was going good and it turned out it wasn't, and he actually called everybody on their bullshit, then I don't think Jan Irvin ever truly recovered from that. It's unfortunate, so that's,
Yeah, and it's not to take anything away from the things that he is pointing out, because in my opinion, even though I might not be a disinfo guy and you might not be, and most of the other people he's accusing aren't, some of them are.
No, absolutely, yeah, and I think he definitely discovered and exposed quite a few very serious high-level agents. Like just the work just on between Aldous Huxley and the whole Huxley family, and who's the other one main guy, Timothy Leary, all that stuff. I mean, that's huge, And I'm not saying that he gets 100% credit either. I'm sure other people were involved, and other people have added to that research, but. At the same time, I don't, so many people, it's a common thing to do to just throw Jan Irvin under the bus. And it's really easy to see why, because I feel like he knee-jerk reactions for him. So he becomes what they call a lol cow nowadays, right? That's what they say. Have you heard that term?
No, that's funny though.
Okay, so that's like a common thing. Like if you find somebody that'll always spurg out and they always get mad and they always overreact and they always act stupid, then all the people that want to get a laugh, they'll go antagonize that person so that they can get the lulls off of him, and they call him a lull cow, And so I hate to say it, but I think that I don't think people are necessarily trying to get a laugh, but I think that they are intentionally aggravating Jan Irvin to watch him react and to keep him off kilter, whether it's as agents or just as people being, people don't get along well in general. You give them the internet as a mask of anonymity, and then they act all the worse.
SB, what do you think of this? We know that you are a researcher of Flat Earth, but what do you think of this topic? And it's one of the most popular UFO conspiracy topics. I'm talking about the reptilian aliens. Do you have any opinions, thoughts? Do you believe in them?
Well, I definitely do have an opinion on that, and what I think it is, and I'm sure you've heard this before if you study the alien stuff, I think that that all of that is allegory for the reptilian mind, and I think it's very real that we have something like what you would call a reptilian mind, and so I don't think that it's like the old television show V. I don't know if you ever watched that. I'm a little older than you, but I mean, it was
I'm familiar.
Yeah. So they were literally like reptiles, right? And I think that David Icke was probably. It seemed to me like he was someone who was trying to come out and speak the truth, and they co-opted him and told him, "Well, we'll still keep you out here, and we'll co-opt you as an agent, or we're not going to just shut you down, but we want you to modify your message a little bit." That was, and so I think you could probably credit most of the literal alien stuff a lot to his influence and his work. But I think it's an accurate allegory for the idea of the reptilian mind, and I do think I lean more towards I'm definitely a Christian, but almost more like a esoteric Christian or a Gnostic, and when I say Gnostic, I don't mean the full inversion Gnostic where, Jesus is the devil and all that. I just mean, I definitely believe that the extra canonical books and books like the Book of Enoch and the Gospel of Thomas and these kinds of things. I know you just interviewed Miguel Connor from Aeon Byte, so I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm kind of more in those guys' camp, while still being very wary of the mysticism and the magical side of it. It's not that I don't believe in magic, but I do think it's a duping kind of new agey tool that they use against us. But I'd say it's more likely that something like archons is, if there's something beyond heartless evil men in the world that are influencing us and trying to manage and control us, that it's something more like that. It's fallen angels, demons, archons, something more in that category. And using all of those words just as a placeholder for whatever you want to think of that as, It's, to me, it's hard to articulate any of this stuff into language because it's not so simple as to say, well, it's a demon, well, it's an alien. It's way more nuanced, especially if you start reading it and studying it, than to just slap a title on it. Like I've seen very strange lights and things in the sky, and I have friends who have definitely seen like really severe examples of what they would definitely call a UFO. I've just seen anomalies in the sky, but I have friends that have seen like the thing come down and hang out over them and like kind of follow them around and then bug out and then like come back a week later or a few days later. And I don't think they're lying. The way that they present their story when they're talking to me is like, it's like shell shock. They're horrified that they, they're like afraid to talk about it at all, And so there's something's going on there. It's not fake. I don't think it's all intelligence apparatus and just fancy technology. I think it's a combination of all those things. I think there's really something metaphysical or supernatural, and at the same time you've got people with high secret technology that are also mimicking, mocking, or even working in cahoots with that. Who knows, right?
Do you feel that some of this flat Earth stuff, could this be some kind of demonic deception?
I think the demonic deception is probably more that they had us believing in a globe. But I think that so back to the idea of communitarianism, the main thing that they're using that drives people towards helping their plan succeed is this whole Hegelian dialectic project reaction or problem reaction solution process, right? All of us conspiracy guys, we all know about that. That they're trying to divide and polarize us, and then offer us a solution that allows us to say, okay, well, we're unhappy with where we were, and that looks good, so we'll take it. I think the flat Earth is a way to do that, so that it pushes people back towards religion or spirituality, because you see it, for one thing, it's promoted that way, like especially the people who are against it, they say it's all Christian nonsense, or it's all, it's just a resurgence in ignorant Bible believers. But if you're actually a flat earther, or even if you're just an open-minded person willing to study flat Earth, when you get out there and get amongst the people who are looking at it and who believe it, they're not all uniformly Christians by any means. There's lots and lots of them that are actually vehemently against any type of religion. They may believe in spirituality or something. They're not necessarily atheistic or evolutionary minded, but they're definitely it's not the way it's portrayed. But I think they're trying to manufacture a metaphysical or spiritual awakening in people by bringing the realization back to their mind that the realm is small and focused. And if that's the case, if there's no huge expanse of empty space with galaxies and billions and billions of light years, and it's actually just one localized small place and we can't identify anything else, then it triggers something like a God response, the thought of something like God or a creator, or or even if it's pantheism, it triggers that idea that, okay, well, maybe we are more like a petri dish or something that's being watched, something that's been designed. And so then it like puts a false start on the spiritual reawakening process. I think that's a big part of what Flat Earth is doing.
How about the edge of the Flat Earth? Do you believe that we're surrounded by the ice wall?
No, I don't think it's an ice wall. I think there probably is an actual edge, and the stuff that we've found in our group is hard to articulate, especially without using graphics or pictures. But if you've seen these pictures, Daniel, of say Mount Fuji, or where you are, Mount Rainier, sometimes the sun sets and Mount Rainier casts a shadow, a huge triangle on the ground, So I think that's potentially the sun literally passing down past the edge, so that the sun itself is lower than the mountain, And so it's the model that we've kind of mocked up and come up with. The main man that came up with it was studying the Book of Enoch, and he noticed the correlation directly between what's described in the Book of Enoch and the movements of the moon specifically. And in combination with that, it really looks like it's probably a square with edges east and west, and north and south. Like there's ice and cold, but still land and animals in the north, and in the south, definitely like way colder, but not a big Antarctic ice wall. No, I don't. If you look up Ethiopian Enoch Flat Earth, if anybody's out there listening or interested, or if you want to check it out. I saw that your page is on Facebook. I don't know if you're on Facebook too as like a regular account, but if you want, man, I can toss you in the group so you can see, get hands-on and check out some of the research and some of the memes, so to speak. There's a lot of memes that pictures worth 1,000 words,
How about this idea that there's actually other little lily pads or little civilizations or communities that are beyond what we think of as the boundary of our world, if it just is flat and it goes on and on?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case either. I do think that there's hidden land here. I think there's probably a hidden continent, something like that's maybe there's an elite group of what we would call the bad guys, who they're above all of the people that we would identify as leading the conspiracy. You know how it is. They always say, is it the Jews? Is it the Jesuits? Is it the Catholic Church? Is it the Templars? Is it the et cetera, right? There's always this shell game of who's at the top. And my personal opinion is that there probably is a group that's at the top. They probably are not identified to us by any name or knowledge. We don't have any real knowledge of them, and that they probably are hidden somewhere on a landmass that like a seventh continent or something. So like Lemuria or Atlantis or something is probably, because it's in so many writings, like it's in Ayn Rand, that's what they're doing. They're running away to hide on an island that's kind of got a cloak or a force field over it so you can't find it. And you see this, I don't know if you watch anime, but my girlfriend's been watching One Piece. You know what that show is?
Oh, I love One Piece.
Yeah, so One Piece, the same thing, right? Like they go and go and go, and they end up at a secret city that's hidden in the sky, right? And you see this theme over and over again. So I think that's
I remember that. I remember that story arc. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's an amazing cartoon, man. It's I'm sure people glance at it and they think, oh, look, like it's kid stuff, and it's not. It's a great, really well written, and it's full of occult and esoteric symbolism and deep meaning. Like if you study all the Gnosticism and ancient texts and all of these old magical stories and mythology, and then watch One Piece, you're like, it's not for little kids at all, man. It's deep,
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's my understanding that it's actually become the number one anime manga of all time. It's passed up Dragon Ball.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because it's I'm sure that's probably, later on tonight when we're relaxing, because that's what I'll be looking at my phone and hanging out on Twitter or drawing a picture using my digital apps or whatever. And my girlfriend's always rolling through episodes of One Piece. That's what we do, man. So I don't.
Nice.
I kind of just, I don't really watch it carefully, but I still pick it all up. I enjoy it. She's always like, "Is this okay?" Because I'm not really an anime guy. I'm familiar with it, but she digs on it. So.
Yeah, I've got this app called Crunchyroll, and you get tons of anime, and you can just watch it on your phone anywhere.
Yeah, I think she's got something similar like that. It's not Crunchyroll, but yeah, the same thing. Because there was this one, the Magus. Like, it was this dude who went and, like, bought a really young girl as a slave, and he, like, has pretty much, like, a Baphomet head, and, I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, the Magus Bride or something like that.
Yeah, the Magus Bride. I watched a few episodes of that, and I was like, holy crap. That's like putting the straight, darkest ritual magic, like, straight in your face,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It was hiding nothing, because, like, that's right back into the whole... blood sacrifice, child molestation, all that stuff that, any of us that look at Pizzagate and before that Franklin cover-up, all that stuff, they're bringing it out hardcore nowadays, trying to get people to... I think that's another fear tactic, but I also don't doubt at all that they're actually participating in that stuff, unfortunately. I think it's very real. I think they've always used blood and human sacrifice. All history of sacrifice has always involved blood. And so I don't doubt for a minute that they're fulfilling their horrible desires in the worst possible ways, and also performing magic with the blood of innocent people. I think that's all real. I think they also exaggerate it and they parallel the story and make it seem like ooga booga, just like everything else. But I also think that there's an underlying reality there that, once again, I'd prefer not know. I don't want to know what the details are.
Are you
really drinking baby blood or something? I don't want the bottom line details. That's just.
SB, are you a pretty big Metallica fan?
I was, man. I was a Metallica fan until I saw them live in concert, and they were pretty sucky and they were pretty annoying. And after that, I just couldn't really dig on them. I'll still toss on anything with Cliff Burton. I don't really dig Kill 'Em All that much, but I'd say Master of Puppets. Ride the Lightning, and I could still dig on and Justice for All, but after that, like, we played songs off the Black Album and stuff when we were in high school. But even And Justice for All, man, I could ruin And Justice for all your listeners, all you Metallica fans out there. Just listen to how much louder the snare drum is than everything else in the whole album, and it'll just ruin it for you.
Things are a little out of balance.
It is. If you go back and listen to And Justice for All, the snare drum, like, for one thing, the bass guitar is not there at all. They were still so upset that they lost Cliff Burton. They hired Jason Newsted and brought him in there, but then they mixed the bass in so poorly, and I think they were butthurt. They didn't want to give Cliff's spot up to this kid, and so James Hetfield's guitar completely washes the bass guitar out, so you can't really hear it in the album at all. And then the snare drum is way too loud. So if you go listen to it with headphones on and you think of it that way, then all you hear is just tat, 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 tat. You can just hear Lars' snare drum, and it's just annoying.
How about the Black Album? Did you like that one?
The Black Album wasn't bad. I mean, I'd say that's where Metallica jumped the shark, right? After that, I never really listened to any of their stuff after that.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my question for you, if you thought that they jumped the shark after the Black Album, or if you still respect them.
No, I even before the Black Album, I was having a really hard time. I saw Metallica on that tour for the Black Album, and Kurt Hammett had a pink scrunchie in his hair, and they just weren't very tight and good on stage. They were cocky and arrogant, and their fans all sucked. That really, it sucked, because I was trying to have a good time. We saw them there where you're at in Seattle.
Their fans, they sucked.
Their fans sucked, man. It was they were all singing along flat and terrible, and they didn't know how to. They had bad pit etiquette. I'll tell you a funny ass story though, man. This is one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me at a concert. I was at that Metallica concert, and there's this kid in front of me, and he's smaller than me, younger than me, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, I'm blind, get me into the pit. I'm blind. get me to the pit, get me to the pit. So, being a true heavy metal compadre, I just rushed over to the guy and grabbed him by the back of his shirt and his arm and shoved him right into the middle of the mosh pit. And so he fell and kind of turned towards me, and he was blind. Like, you can see his eyes were completely blind. I thought he was just exaggerating or
God.
I was like, oh my God, I just shoved a blind man. Like, that's what he was begging for. He wanted to be in the pit. I was like, well, there you go, brother.
Oh my God.
I mean, at that same time, I was like, oh crap, like that shocking feeling of like, he's really blind. I just shoved a blind guy into the mosh. But he was happy. He like stuck his hand up. His face was all elated, but his eyes were blind. I was like, oh my God, dude.
Oh my God. I take it he lived.
I remember thinking like I should go in there after him, but he was happy, and I was like, well, I guess you know how to be blind, not me.
Oh my God. Another, you mentioned Pantera earlier, and that is another story that is just so tragic.
Oh yeah, I still miss Dimebag Darrell to this day, man. That was probably my favorite true heavy metal band. We saw Pantera at least 4 or 5 times live in concert, following them around to different venues and stuff over the years. And I used to just stalk Dimebag in the pit just to watch this, stand close enough to the rail as I could get. I'm not a very tall guy, so I could never get right up on the rail very easily without getting clobbered because there's monsters up there, man. Guys that are 6'5" get up on the rail, you can't really steal their spot very easily. But I could get 2 or 3 back, and I'd stand there and just scream at Dime and watch him play leads and watch his energy level. And sometimes I wonder if that's not another conspiracy, because the Pantera had a huge, huge influence over the minds of children our age at that teenage angsty phase. And they debuted at number 1, I think they knocked Michael Jackson off of the number 1 spot with not with Vulgar Display of Power, but the next album, Far Beyond Driven, and that was all just by them touring and promoting their music without any press and without any radio play. So I always thought that was like, I wonder if the powers that be kind of accidentally created a Frankenstein with Pantera, and then afterwards they saw Dime get away from the band and kind of start over again on his own. I wonder sometimes if they didn't MK Ultra that dude that killed him and send him in there to do that using mind control. I've always been suspicious of that.
Yeah, that's
such a
a good
weird
point.
thing to do, man.
Yeah, he was just some like weirdo that would walk around town with some headphones on and just walk around like a zombie. So I could totally see that being possible.
Did you ever look closer into it? Like, he claimed that he had written all the lyrics and that Phil had ripped him off, and he was an ex-Marine, and so then when Pantera broke up, he took it personally. Like, he was already mad because in his paranoid thinking, Phil Anselmo had stolen all the lyrics he'd written and was using them. And then when the band broke up, he felt like he'd been disrespected even all the more. And then he supposedly went and jumped the fence and murdered Dime and those other people. And so I always thought the whole thing was just like, it's like straight out of Manchurian Candidate,
Yeah, there's definitely that possibility there. I would love for some links to come up or something like that, but who's really to say? Maybe he was just a obsessed stalker, or maybe there is something like that going on. Anybody that was in the military, you have to ask that question. They at some point they could have gotten, like you said, MK Ultra.
Yeah, and I've always, to me, it's like I would say they definitely had motive because of all the people in that band, between Phil Anselmo and Dimebag, those were the two guys that had huge influence over their fan base, and it was power, man. I mean, I saw them one time when we went and saw Pantera, dude. They turned on War Pigs by Black Sabbath. And they killed the lights, and they played the whole song War Pigs. And the crowd started to get so crazy before the curtain even dropped and the band came out that they turned the house lights back on and put on like 70s soft rock for like 20 minutes. Because I think the promoters and whoever was in charge of the venue, just the energy that was building up in that stadium for Pantera to come on stage, I think it scared them. And then Pantera came out, and they were like calling people down out of the cheap seats onto the floor, and like the security and the stage managers were waving them off. But like Phil was drinking on stage, and like he threw up a little bit on his shoes, and he was like, he's saying that I remember him saying on the mic, they're mad at us because we condone too much. We condone too much. I remember Phil Anselmo saying that, but they were calling, like Vinnie Paul stood up from his drum set and waved his arms really high in the air, like to the people in the cheap seats to come down into the pit. Well, I mean, you can't do that. That's not your. There's a number of people that are allowed to be on the floor, and a number of people that have to be in the seats that they bought. So if you do that, then you're creating a fire hazard and a security hazard. And then Pantera had also the reputation of letting their fans break the barrier and kick it on stage with them. Once they got bigger, they couldn't really do that. But if you look at their old tour videos and stuff, when they were somewhat smaller, and I'm talking like Vulgar Display of Power days and smaller venues, the crowd would just overflow onto the stage, and the band wouldn't stop playing. They just like kind of manage people away from their gear and tell them, get on the mic and tell them, don't fuck up our gear and be cool. And we're all good. You guys can party with us, And so that's like controlled, managed anarchy, So I've always thought, Pantera had something special that I think, if anything, at least the powers that be had their eye on them and were very aware of the idea that these guys, that they weren't like Days of the New or something. They weren't like Skid Row. They toured with Skid Row, but they weren't prima donna, mamby-pamby. They were hardcore, and their fans loved them. We loved them, man. We used to follow those guys around. Had so much fun.
One thing I didn't ask you about was, what is a heavy metal magician?
Oh, that's just, I wrote that to you because that's what I used to always tell people instead of saying musician. And so that's probably, to play heavy metal and rock and roll music is probably as close as I ever came to any kind of what I would call magical practice, because we had our bands more, a number of different bands. And when you get it right and you get a group clicked up and gelled up and well rehearsed, and you write songs and you have your cover songs and you put on a show and you've got all the stage lighting and you've got somebody running it and everything comes off perfectly, it really is like a big magic show, And at the end of it, everybody feels like this elated hurrah, like this, like everybody goes parties together afterwards, and like you just feel euphoric. Like there's no high that I've ever felt that's anything like having a really awesome gig in a small venue with 200 or 300 people or whatever. And so that's all I really meant, is that we were rock and roll magicians. We had a good time.
Is it true that the music industry is satanic?
I think so. I think that one of the guys that hangs around in the blood sports community has sent me a link. It was actually earlier today, I think. His name's Lord Byron on Twitter, and it was a link all about like I think it was who's the guy? Heath Ledger talking about his role as the Joker, and then it was it showed a clip real quick of Bob Dylan, and the interviewer was asking him, why are you still out here when you're so old? And he said, well, I got to fulfill my contract. And he's like, well, with contract with who? And he's like, well, the lead general in charge of this world, and other and the invisible world, and so many similar things. You've got all these multi-personality disordered people that say they have an alter ego like Beyonce, and it's all in the heavy metal and the rock and roll. I mean, it used to be only in the heavy metal and the rock and roll. Like AC/DC was his name. Angus Young would say that he was possessed by devils when he was playing the lead guitar, and that's why he would fall on the ground and spaz out. And John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the same thing. He said that he would hear the voices of angels and demons arguing in his head. And if you read a lot of interviews and listen to a lot of interviews with rock and roll guitarists and musicians, you hear this over and over and over again. And then if you get really deeper into it, you get into guys like, Slayer's obviously the most obvious example of people that, are just going to be outwardly satanic. But you can go right past Slayer to bands like Deicide, and I'm talking about my era. There's even more of them now. Deicide, what was the other one? Morbid Angel. I remember checking out some Morbid Angel tracks, and I couldn't hang. I'm like, no, I'm not a devil worshiper, I'm not going to listen to music that's openly praying to and paying homage to Lucifer, you know. So, I mean, some of it definitely is just outright. But then I'd say you get the flip side of that with confusion, people thinking that Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath is definitely quote-unquote devil music, when really if you go read the lyrics and listen to it, they're like struggling with regular issues, and a lot of the time Ozzy's actually singing like as if he's a Christian, you know. And as far as I know, he claims to be a born-again Christian.
Yeah, I do remember reading that. I'm pretty sure that most of the members of the band, if not all of them, are actually Christians.
Yeah, so I'd say it's very convoluted and hard to understand. But as far as I think, back to what we first talked about, it being culture creation and them bringing, like establishing a theater or a set or a set of boundaries and rules for us to work inside of. I'd say in that regard, it's definitely something like Satanic, Luciferian, or Left-Handed Path. The same as what that guy Gregory, I can't think of his Gregory Lessing Garrett, that's his name. You know, he's kind of on the same tip. You know, him and I, our research, it trucks right up to each other in a lot of places. That it's like you're not being told, hey, come over here, we're going to teach you how to worship the devil. You're being told this is cool, or this is angsty, or this is fun, or there's a benefit to this. But then you're also subconsciously or passive-aggressively being encouraged to do things that maybe you wouldn't have done had you not found that, right? You know? If we'd have all just stayed good Catholics or good Protestants, maybe we'd have never taken steps in all these directions. I'm not saying that would be a necessarily good thing either. I think they've hyper managed all of that so that it's like lose.
Do you have any thoughts on Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Guns N' Roses when I was like in junior high school. But the more it's kind of the same as Metallica. Like the more I grew up and the more they changed, the more I absolutely just hated Axl Rose and all of his prima donna hijinks and like wanting an ego stage and diving in the crowd to fight fans and like like who wants that, right? You know?
Yeah, I just laughed when you said that because I watched that video not that long ago, and I just one of the craziest things that's ever happened. I mean, the front man of a band flying through the air like Superman.
Yeah, I mean, how insecure do you have to be when you're the front man? I mean, you're the king of the kingdom, and you're gonna dive over the rail into the crowd because someone's taking a photograph of you. I just can't fathom, man.
Yeah, he's saying he's yelling at the crowd, yelling at everybody, saying, "Take that guy down, take him down. You know what? Forget you guys. I'm gonna do it."
I know. Like, well, I mean, that's like to me, that's horrible enough. Like, just me at a karaoke bar, I have so much power in my hand with just a microphone because I can sing, bro. I mean, you can go look me up if you go look up RX Only Panacea 7 on Reverb Nation, our tracks are still up there. You know, and I'll send you some stuff if you want. I'm not bragging. I mean, I just been doing this forever. I can sing. So the power that comes with having a microphone in your hand, I can't imagine 40,000, 20,000 people, and you're going to sick them on somebody? No way, man. Somebody might die. They worship you already. They're already thinking of you as like the preeminent thing. You're the big, awesome dude. You're like, get that guy for me. That's really dangerous. Oh, you want to hear another rock and roll story, man, for being at a concert? You want to hear something funny?
Sure.
All right, so me and my mom used to go to concerts together, and we went and saw Poison open up for Tesla, right? So, so these are like total hair band, butt rock hair bands, right? And Poison, they're most famous for that song, Every Rose Has Its Thorn, and they kind of have their long makeup-y, lots of makeup, lots of hairspray. And Bret Michaels is the singer for Poison, and he had this black acoustic guitar with a big blue rose embellished in it, and that was his guitar from the music video for the song Every Rose Has Its Thorn, and that was like the song, right? That was the big song, the big ballad, the big rock ballad that got all the girls horny and everybody loved. And so he comes out in Sacramento, and he's strumming the guitar, and he's kind of like overextending the intro, and he's getting ready to start singing. And right as he opens up his mouth to start singing the first line of the song. Somebody in the crowd threw a tennis shoe and hit the microphone perfectly, right on. And it just smashed him hard in the teeth with the microphone, and it was really funny, dude. It was like he started screaming. He did the same thing. Like it was really the funny thing is that Sacramento is a pretty hardcore city. That's where I grew up, and so like he got all mad and he stomped back and forth and he's screaming and yelling on the mic and like, who did that? And I'm gonna kick your ass and I'm gonna come down there. And he got to the edge of the stage. He's like, I'm going to come down there. And the crowd was just like, yeah, come down here. And he, like, changed his mind. Stomped back and forth. He went to the edge of the stage. Oh, shit. Look at the horrible crowd. The faces had changed. Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately, our audio has broken up. SB, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, we lost our audio connection for a second there. I did want to ask you, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, man.
Who, in your opinion, who killed Kurt Cobain?
Boy, that's a good question. The most recent thing I saw that was interesting is that some people think that it's actually just a hoax altogether. I know that the common thing is the canard is to say that Courtney Love did it, and I always thought that he actually really killed himself, if anything. But then the more you look into it, it's kind of the same. It seems like we keep coming around the same corner, right? Like you want to believe, like, well, he really just killed himself, right? And then you look at it, and it's like, oh, nah. There's a lot of suspicious evidence. You can actually see the police reports supposedly and all that, and it's like, oh, this is weird. I don't know. And then there's a website I follow on Facebook called The New Nationalist, because he's like a far out conspiracy dude. I don't promote or subscribe to any type of politics. I really don't. I follow it all and I look at it, and I'm kind of affiliated with some of the alt-righty stuff just because I went on blood sports, but it's not my thing. I don't do that. I'm not afraid to talk to or deal with anybody on any terms. But so this New Nationalist guy, and he's not like far out like a Nazi or anything, but he just is. He believes in nationalism. But he wrote an article all about how he thinks the whole thing is a hoax, and that Kurt Cobain just faked his death, and that the whole thing is just an elaborate hoax. And people say the same thing about JFK. They say the same thing about Abraham Lincoln. Even you can find people alleging that Abraham Lincoln that was an assassination hoax. So I find it interesting, Daniel, that from maybe back in the day when we were talking about the years when we were maybe listening to music and hanging out, maybe taking mushrooms or whatever, the conspiracies then were like pretty boilerplate standard stuff. 9/11 was an inside job, and JFK was killed by the mob or maybe by the Bush family, and all this, kind of the moon landing was fake. And now you come to 2018, and it's like Alex Jones is Bill Hicks. The presidents didn't even really die. Kurt Cobain didn't even really die. Maybe David Bowie faked his death. Like it seems like everything. The Earth is flat. It seems like everything has gone or then you got the Mandela effect. It seems like everything's gone off the deep end, bro. Like even conspiracies aren't normal anymore.
Well, that does beg another question. What do you think of all this Pizzagate, pedophile stuff going on?
Well, I remember finding a bunch of that stuff way back when I first started to study 9/11. There was John DeCamp was an American senator. A lot of people think that he was actually what they call a limited hangout. That he was working for the government and bringing out evidence of a similar situation in the 90s, and it was called the Franklin Scandal or the Franklin Cover-Up. And there's a documentary about it called Conspiracy of Silence. And it's a similar thing. There was a black guy who, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was a Republican politician, and they found all these weird little like slave storage bins for kids in his backyard, and then all these accusations of young homosexual call boys being taken to the White House, and Bush's credit cards being involved, Bush Sr. actually being involved in it. And so for it to all come around again with new names and new faces, it doesn't surprise me. I think these people really are sick, and I do think that they use they've always used that kind of information as a blackmail tactic, and maybe it starts with just getting some prostitutes for this new senator over here who seems like he's a pretty clean, upstanding guy, but you need him to be under your thumb. You need to coerce him or have him vote a certain way or make sure that you've got him under control. So maybe you see if he is weak sexually and will take on some prostitutes, and if not, maybe you roofie him and pose him up with some prostitutes. And for the guys that go for it, I think they get burnt out on the same old thing, and so then they start bringing them younger girls or little boys. I think that's and it's not just my theory. You'll find that around in books, or this is a common. They call it brownstone operation. Have you heard that?
No.
So a brownstone operation is something that's kind of come out of the Pizzagate thing as at least a new word or a phrase that they use. So they'll get these guys that are intelligence contractors or like Blackwater, what do they call it? I just can't think of the word.
Mercenaries?
Yeah, mercenaries. And so they'll get these mercenaries and they'll assign them or get them to take like an extra young girlfriend, like, maybe they're our age, and so they'll encourage them to have like a 15 or 16-year-old girlfriend. And then as the process goes on, their higher-ups will encourage them, not only to have that girl as their like little sex toy, but then to also pimp her out and eventually even to potentially sell her. So they call this brownstoning, a brownstone operation. And so I think that's probably, unfortunately, a very real thing. And that, that however low you want to go in your mind of how that could potentially play out, how young, how disgusting, I think it's all unfortunately very possible. Tracy Twyman is a really famous occultist, and she's been doing quite a bit of research on that kind of stuff. If you've never checked out Tracy Twyman might jump on your show too, man.
Oh, she's been on here. She's been on here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tracy's awesome. I like Tracy a lot.
Do you like rap at all?
I was into just kind of like 90s hip hop. I was a hip hop dancer when I was in junior high school. So I like MC Hammer, Bobby Brown, Boys to Men, all that kind of stuff. When I was before I went heavy metal, that's what I was all about. Because I was from Sacramento, and that's what all the kids did. We were all into hip hop and like NWA and Beastie Boys, and so I still keep up with some of it. Like I'll listen to hip hop with people at work, or if they've got it on. I don't usually put it on. Sometimes I'll throw a song on. Like I don't mind Tupac, or I was trying to think of who's the other one guy that I never really went and downloaded any of his music, but it's Strange Music. What's his name, man? He's named after Machine Gun. I just can't think of it. Tech Nine. Tech Nine's pretty badass, man.
Oh, okay, yeah. Tech Nine's good.
But, I try and at least keep all those names and ideas of who's who in front of me, but it's so hard anymore, And I've got a friend who's pretty big into promoting rap music, and he's a dude that we're going to have on our little variety show here sometime. We're trying to get he's involved with a lot of these little SoundCloud rappers like Lil Pump and all these kind of guys, and maybe not as big a name as Lil Pump, but there's a guy named Slug Christ, and so I've tried to check out a little bit of those guys' work, and I just can't dig it, man. It's kind of what we were talking about with the other stuff, Like I'm willing to give it a listen real quick, try a couple tracks, but it's so cringy and weird and so much auto-tune. And it's like, I think whoever called it emo rap or grunge rap, that seems pretty accurate for like these guys they're all tatted up. They got tattoos and nose rings and their hair is purple and green. And like, it's really emotional verses. Like they're not hard anymore. Like they're all super kind of crybaby emotional. Like, to me, it's just odd. It's a real strange anomaly to hear these. Like this is where rap has gone.
What do you think about Bigfoot? Is he real?
I don't know, man. I got a friend who's on actual regular television hunting him on the Bigfoot. He's on one of the Bigfoot shows. I think that there's something to it. I've talked to a lot of people that have had firsthand experience with like a really strong pungent odor up here where we live, in this part of the world.
Yeah.
You go out in the woods and you run into something and you get either weird hair or footprints and a strong smell, and it doesn't identify as anything that you would definitely know, like, oh, that's a bear, that's a coyote, that's a skunk. So there might be something to it. I always joke with people that Bigfoot probably is real, but he also has the ability to dematerialize. That's to me, in my mind, that's the best way to look at it. Like, maybe Bigfoot is real, but he's got that telekinesis to be able to be like, oh crap, human beings. And so instead of running away or hiding in the rocks, he just steps out of this dimension, man. Steps into a place that we can't see, that exists for him, and maybe it exists for us too, but we can't access it anymore.
Who are the best guitarists of all time?
Oh man, so I learned so much from and copied so much blues and heavy guitar from Jimi Hendrix that it's hard not to throw him out there first, like everybody else would. I love Jimi Hendrix. I really enjoyed his. I felt like I had a kindred spirit with him, but I'd say John Frusciante is probably a lesser known name as far as being a really substantial and amazing guitarist, songwriter, just a creative mind. If you've never looked at Frusciante, he's the main guitar player from the Chili Peppers. He replaced Hillel Slovak when he died. Hillel Slovak was the first guitar player, and Frusciante replaced him. And his stuff with the Chili Peppers is amazing, and it's really good, but his solo work is far out and different. And then as far as like really technical, awesome, the virtuoso guys, I'd say that Jeff Beck. You're going to be hard pressed to find anyone that can play the guitar like Jeff Beck, as far as just mastery, a true master of the guitar, because he only plays with his fingers. He doesn't play with a pick. He can play anything he wants. Trying to think off the top of my head, who else would I say is really upper echelon? Like Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits is kind of in a similar category. I'd say Jeff Beck is probably more advanced than Mark Knopfler, but Mark Knopfler is really clean and good. And of course, Dimebag Darrell, man, that was my go-to jam. Zakk Wylde is I still follow Zakk Wylde on Instagram because his Instagram account is hilarious. He manages it himself. He'll jump on there and drink coffee and shred guitar, and like he'll make like little video memes and jokes with his crew and his band members, and so that was the first time I ever saw a really awesome guitar show was Zakk Wylde in 1989. I know we talked about that. It's funny, we both saw Ozzy Osbourne when we were 13. That's a testament to Ozzy's ability to put on a show, huh? If in 1989 I'm 13 and I'm watching Zakk Wylde and Ozzy, and then would you say, you said you were born in 94?
Who, me?
Yeah, is that right?
No, I was born in 82.
82. Okay, no, I must have been thinking of somebody else. That's probably that kid I'm DMing with you and that kid I mentioned, Byron, on Twitter. So pardon me if I made a mistake there, man. I apologize. Maybe it wasn't you at all that said you saw Ozzy. I'm sorry, I got you guys mixed up.
No, I wish I had. I mean, I think Ozzy's a legend. That's actually my favorite style of music: the doom metal, the slow, heavy riffs, and the witchy sort of themes. The bluesy sort of.
Me too, man. Like Black Sabbath, right?
Yeah, exactly. And all the bands that spouted from them, and all the ones that they inspired, which is pretty much almost every metal band.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the young kids I know that listen to this newer, like what I call math metal. Because like what I would call new metal came after the '90s genre metal. Like, so you get Korn and Limp Bizkit and this kind of era, and I never really dug any of that stuff. I was never really into that. There's a few songs that are okay, but I don't consider Korn a heavy metal band, really, But these younger kids, they call all that stuff that me and you were just describing, they call it dad rock, and I think that's just hilarious. It's not even metal to them anymore. Like I say, Pantera's real heavy metal, and they're like, no, that's just dad rock, bro. That's not even metal. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, wow, things change.
It is, it's weird. And then you go listen to what they're listening to, and it sounds like a robot having sex with a pinball machine, It's like so aggressively fast and technical. I mean, and it's really amazingly technical, but I want that groove, man. I want groove metal,
Yeah, I've heard that
White
stuff.
Zombie was pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, White Zombie for sure. I've heard that stuff, the math metal. It's very complex and interesting, but I agree with you. I just don't feel the groove. I don't really feel the rhythm with it. It's a little bit too much sound for me, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I never had so much fun in a mosh pit as watching Sepultura open up for Pantera, because it was all just something you could groove to, and you're kind of dancing and moshing at the same time. And I can't imagine trying to pack into the front 2 rows of a venue and hear these guys like play this. It's like a memorization chart of, we do 16 bars, and then we do 24 bars, and then we go back to 16, and then we do 48, and then we just do 12, and and then 8 3 times different, and then back again. Like it's almost like jazz.
Well, I play a little guitar myself, and I can't even really play until I get some sort of groove, and until I get some kind of beat or rhythm.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite thing to do nowadays is play the acoustic guitar and either jam the blues or jam like folk, like Hank Williams. I'll play this boom chunk, boom chunk, boom chunk. You have to get that. It has to move, man. It has to move, like make you swing a little bit. So I don't vibe on that other stuff so much.
Do you smoke or eat cannabis?
I used to. I don't anymore, man. Last time I ate some cannabis, I was like kind of having a bout of insomnia, and I know this old hippie sage lady who, like, years ago, she made some cookies and she left a bunch of the cookie crumbs at her house, and so my girlfriend was out of town, and I was like, screw it, man, I'm gonna eat some weed and get kind of stoned and watch a movie. And it made me so paranoid, like I turned off the TV and I'm like, screw this. And so I went and laid in bed, and I'm like looking at my phone trying to just like chill out, and I'm just like, I can't even look at my phone, it's just making me feel paranoid. So I just like closed my eyes and laid there with the blanket and like astral projected for 3 hours. It got me so stoned to eat like not even a handful of cookie crumbs. So like I don't mess with it no more. But I used to smoke like the day is long, man. Chronic smoker, and I never was huge on edibles, but I mean I definitely did plenty of edibles. It just always used to knock me out, I'd get so high, I'd be high for just a minute, and then I'd just go fall asleep, and everyone would be like, "You passed out." Like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't eat a whole cookie.
Does your girlfriend believe in the same things that you do?
No. She's very copacetic, and she says she likes the romanticism of the flat Earth, and she appreciates that she can definitely see that there's no easy solution. So it's not like we're diametrically opposed. She understands, like, okay, if you go try and solve like the most basic problems of what flat earthers, it amazes me that most people don't see that they can't come to the same conclusion, that like, okay, there's a reason that people are stuck on it. There's definitely a dividing line where you can take sides, and now we can just endlessly digress and disagree. And I think that's why they brought it out. But she doesn't take a side. She's like, she likes the idea that it kind of causes what I would call, I'd say, along with what I said about religion or a religious experience, I think they're bringing magic back into the world, Daniel. I think this is what we're seeing. It's part of the communitarianism thing. Is that so you've got the political side of it where they have to write laws and make all of the quote-unquote community, Agenda 21, environmentalism, they have to make all of that work in a new way, because the old world is going away, and they're bringing the new culture. They're like, it's like we're changing from Windows 7 to Windows 10, right? And so along with that, they're also bringing back not just a new spirituality like monotheism, but also I think they're going to bring back magic. That's why you're seeing guys like Miguel Connor, Gordon White, and all of these Christopher Knowles, all of these occultists and esotericists are being brought to the forefront, partly because it's real and they really believe it and they're practicing it, and partly because it's a piece of the bigger puzzle that's happening. That they're bringing out this, they're bringing out a new plan. The world's changing right before our very eyes. We're living in very interesting and strange times. All the people before us were waiting for this time, and it's exactly the name of your show. I mean, is it really the end of days, or are they going to make the appearance of the end of days and transcend this and push us all into something else? Or only some of us are going to make it, they're going to kill us all off? Who knows, right? We don't know. That's what we're waiting to see.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? Do you think it's going to go down one certain way?
Yeah, I vacillate on that, just like everything else we've talked about. Sometimes I think, well, I mean, not not believing that nuclear bombs are real has really encouraged me to think that maybe them claiming that they want to kill off a huge amount of the population is maybe that's just another scare tactic or a hoax, that they can't actually do it. Like the Georgia Guidestones saying that we got to reduce the population down by 90% or whatever it says. Sometimes I wonder if it's not a complete inversion, that maybe it's actually that they need a lot of us here, and they need, and when I say they, I mean like the archons or the invisible beings, that maybe they're feeding off of us, literally something more like the Matrix. Maybe they're cultivating and farming us for our physical, actual energy, and that they need us here, and that one way to keep us in that state of panic that they need is for us to all imagine that we're coming right upon Armageddon, we're coming right upon our certain death, we're coming right upon, apocalypse. But really, that's a way to keep our vibration and our senses heightened and elevated so that they can harvest the energy off of us for whatever it is that they might need it for. That's the kind of stuff that goes through my mind. I'm not so sure that they really want to have more wars. It seems like we've kind of gotten away from real economic crashes, from real wars. I'm not trying to undermine what's going on in these countries where they're definitely bombing and killing people, but it doesn't seem like we're moving towards another World War I, World War II type thing. I sure hope not. I really hope not. I hope that we can avoid that. But it seems like the shelf life of them doing actual false flags, or especially any of these hoaxy type things that we see, like a lot of this shooter stuff is very obviously hoaxy stuff. If you look at it, I'm not going to go so far as to say I never studied something like Sandy Hook enough to say that I have an opinion on it, but they definitely are pulling ops all the time. Like the whole Las Vegas thing, I looked at that quite a bit, and I didn't find any evidence of any anyone bleeding, anyone dead, any shell casings for that matter, any bullet holes in the building facades. It just looked to me like they threw machine gun noises over the sound system and called it a shooting. What do you think?
I think that those things are all false flags.
Yeah, and I think the shelf life on their false flags has just gone through the floor. Like it used to last, like something like 9/11 last 10 years or 20 years, you get some pull off of it and really use it as a tool to manipulate people. And now, they pull something like Las Vegas or some other shooting, and hell, they can hardly get a week or two out of it, so they're pulling another one. That's what it seems like to me anyway,
Have you heard this conspiracy theory about dinosaurs being fake?
Yeah, I have. I think that's true. I think that I'll tell you what, the interview I did with that other guy, Jesse Wall, we talked about something that I found years ago to seem pretty accurate, that they parallel things all the time. They're always taking something that's real and they're creating a false or less true version of it, and they're running that parallel to whatever's really going on. So maybe there really are giants, or there really are fossils, or there really are things hidden in the ground that we would prefer know about and understand. And so, A, instead of telling us about it, they hide them. And B, then they come up with a fake story that supports some piece of their other fake story, like evolution. And so that's what I think. I think that whole thing is I think it's fake as hell, man. I think that there aren't any real dinosaurs, that it's just that there probably is something, but it's not what they told us,
I was wondering if maybe, because they say what they have found are the skulls of the dinosaurs. I have to wonder if that's a reptilian skull.
Yeah, that's curious. Have you read Tracy Twyman's Baphomet book?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you should get a copy of that, because it kind of deals with that about Abraxas, that maybe the god Abraxas was a real creature, and that it was like a chimera body with snake legs. So maybe they're finding something like that. Maybe it's got a lizard head with huge snake legs, or, I wonder sometimes if all those chimeric creatures that we see in the mythological art, I wonder if there's not something to that,
Yeah, I have a strong leaning that there probably is.
And it seems like they're heading that direction again. sometimes I wonder if we're not just repeating the same story, and that every time these powers that be get close to having like mastery of DNA and genetics, that God comes and wipes them out again. You know, sometimes I wonder if that's not, that we're not seeing that maybe they had it in Egypt, and before that they had it in Sumeria or Phoenicia, and then every time that they get really close, that something bigger than whatever's inside this earth comes down and knocks the whole thing over, and make, you know, like a little kid who's one kid's building the tower, and the bigger kid comes along and smashes it down, you know, so you have to start building again. Sometimes I wonder if that's not how the timeline of history rolls.
Yeah, that's a good possibility. Unfortunately, we are hitting the end of our interview, SB. Thank you so much. But before we go, I do want to give you one more opportunity to go ahead and get up on the soapbox one more time. Say whatever you would like to say to my audience out there, and also feel free to follow that up with anything at all that you would like to plug.
Yeah, certainly, man. I guess the one thing that I had on my little list that we didn't cover would be the idea of bringing a positive outcome out of everything we talked about. I mean, usually I'd say people get stuck up in being paranoid, dissatisfied, unhappy, or scared because they found so many lies and so much bullshit, for lack of a better word. And so I would encourage everyone to take control of their food supply and their water supply, to learn how to garden. You know, even if you're just starting with a little planter box in your window, or if you've got property, man, if you're not practicing cultivating the land to grow your own food, I would encourage everyone to do that, and to take a close look at why you would want to do that. Look at the genetic modification of foods, of all of the, you know, what I would do is compare artificial intelligence, genetic research with guys like Craig Venter, and GMOs. And compare all that to raw living, raw food diets, fruitarianism, or just raw veganism. They call it whole foods, plant-based. I'd say those are things that really afford someone a chance to, if there is no food at the grocery store, you know, they crash the stock market and there's no availability of stuff, that at least, hey, in your backyard you've got tomatoes, you've got carrots, you've got berries, you've got pumpkins or whatever, and you can eat, right? And I guess the other thing on top of that is to get to know yourself more than you're getting to know about any one branch of the conspiracy. You know, so find out who you are, be honest with yourself, find out what your flaws are. You know, I feel like it took me a long time to get to that point where I came out the other side and I'm happy and reasonably healthy, comfortable, doing well. You know, so I encourage everyone to do that. You know, but other than that, man, this has been a great interview. I really appreciate you replying to my email and having me on. I don't have a website, but people can find me on Facebook. I'm Sean Alger. You know, I go by SB whenever I'm out here doing interviews. My YouTube is SB Alger. I'm the real me. No avatar here. No pseudonym. I know it's bold, but hey, that's to me. I want, if they're gonna keep files and tabs on me, they're gonna spy on me. I'm just gonna be me. Then here I am. I'm Sean Alger. If you want to find me, I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. Come check me out. And if you want, Daniel, I'd love to have you sometime come jump on, even for a short spot on the RX Only Picture Show. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking for opportunities to plug and interact and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really loose and goofy. So you could come. You know, I don't know if you want to be on camera or not, but you can come at least jump and talk to us, and maybe I'll play some requests for you on the guitar. And we do it every Wednesday at 7:00 on my YouTube live for about 3 hours every Wednesday. So it's a true variety show. So
good stuff. All right, SB. I had so much fun talking to you tonight. Amazing conversation. We covered everything A to Z. Thank you so much, and we should definitely do this again at some point. And I'll definitely,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely.
I'll follow up with you, man. I got you. I got you on the Twitter there. So if something pops in my head, I'll send you a link. Or when I go back and listen to this, some of the stuff I said, I'll send you. I'll remember and. Because I'll go check this out, and I'll send you some links, and we'll just follow up, and we'll find an excuse to. You can jump on my show. I'll jump back on yours in a month or something, or whatever, man. Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Until then, my friend, you have a good night.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Take it easy.
And that was our buddy SB coming at us. in a very in-depth, over 2-hour-long interview about all sorts of things. A lot of topics covered there. Had a good time talking to him. I love talking to people that aren't necessarily the same old. People that have an interesting perspective. I just like people in general. I think that everybody has something that makes them interesting. And I think that every individual is a snowflake with their own perspective and their own world onto themselves. And SB is somebody that you probably haven't heard on Coast to Coast before or any radio programs like that, but a lot of people have actually gotten their start here on End of Days Radio. There's many guests that appeared here first and then went on to appear on several national talk shows with hundreds and thousands of listeners, and maybe even millions. So, End of Days Radio, gateway to the stars. Right? It's kind of funny because I know that the producers and people involved with certain other programs, they listen to this show and they listen for guest ideas and other ideas and stuff like that. And that's fine with me. I'm flattered to have such influence. Of course, I'd like to have the money that they're making, but that's not going to happen. So, I feel okay if anybody wants to be inspired by this program, because hell, I've been inspired by other programs myself. So we all do it, and we all are trying to get this information out there. So power to anybody that's thinking about starting up a podcast or some form of media to get the message out there. But you know what? Let's take a break. I have plenty to say, but that can wait until a little later. I'm going to go ahead and play some music. I'm going to get freshened up, and then we'll do it some more. Plenty more show tonight. Welcome back to End of Days Radio. This is your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from the beautiful Emerald City right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. Oh my, wow. What an awesome interview. What a great day it is. I do have something that I really want to talk about. I really want to talk about this, boys and girls. So, how many of you watched the show Smallville when you were in junior high or high school or as a young adult or whatever? How many people watched Smallville, the show Smallville? I know I did. I didn't watch every episode of every season. I think I got bored with it towards the end. But I'm willing to bet that many of you out there have watched Smallville. Well, so the girl that played, let's see, what was her name on Smallville? Chloe Sullivan, one of Clark Kent's best friends in the WB-CW hit series Smallville. Chloe Sullivan, she has been arrested because she was in a sex slave cult. A cult that had these, it's called N Roman numeral number 10, I Roman numeral V M. Geez, how do you even say that? But this cult, and it turns out the other girl from the show Smallville was involved as well, Kristen Cruick, who played Lana Lang. So this guy Keith Rainier, he was the founder, and this cult was involved with a bunch of very high-level people, very elite members of society, celebrities, actors, actresses. And it seems that it was actually getting funded by a very rich family that's close to the Rothschilds. So definitely some links to the whole satanic ritual, pedophile, satanic traumatic abuse network thing here. But it seems to be all getting blamed on this guy, Keith Raniere, which it should be because apparently he's the founder, but there may have been some very high-level elite types funding the organization. And this girl, Allison Mack, I mean, she's this little blonde girl. And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but when I would watch Smallville, I would always call her ugly. I don't know why. I mean, she wasn't really ugly, but something about her. I just hated her, and I'd call her ugly. And I probably would have never admitted that if this didn't come forward. I probably wouldn't admit that I was calling her ugly, but there was something about her. I'm not sure what it is, but, just this innocent-looking, petite girl who's playing this very innocent character. Apparently she's this recruiter for this sex slave cult. And she's going out and she's bringing girls into it. And she's actually high level in this organization. Like, what kind of sick freak bitch is this? What kind of sick fuck, Allison Mack? What's going on? She's this like sick person that wants to have slaves, and I guess they were actually branding them. They were heating up letters and branding them into the women, and they were screaming, and they were branding this guy Keith Raniere's letters into them, and they were branding Allison Mack's name into them too. Like, it was read one way, it would say the Keith Raniere guy, and read the other way, it would say Allison Mack. And she was apparently set to inherit the whole thing. She was going to get the whole organization. Again, this little Chloe Sullivan from Smallville, she's this freaking... She's in this cult where they're branding women, they're sex slaves, and so much has come out about this thing, this cult, however you pronounce it. Apparently there was some, like, Dr. Mengele doctor that was performing fear experiments on the girls, or some of them. He was performing some kind of experiments to make them very afraid, to produce some kind of drug or something like that, or produce some kind of chemical. It really makes you think of adrenochrome. You guys remember that adrenochrome? That substance that supposedly these elites that torture people and sacrifice them, they're addicted to it. It's a chemical in the brain. Who knows? I originally heard of adrenochrome on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That movie with Johnny Depp where he's driving around through the desert and he's taking all kinds of drugs, and I think the craziest one that he finally takes is adrenochrome. And a lot of my friends in high school, they thought it was like made up. It wasn't real. It was like a fake drug they made for the movie. And I thought that for a long time. And then it turns out it's real, and we even had a guest come on here and talk about it, adrenochrome. So shame on you, Allison Mack. What is your problem? Why would you be involved with this at all? Like, what the hell kind of sick bitch is this? This sick, like, oh my God. And looking at her eyes, like, she just has this evil look in her eyes, this sadistic, evil, power-hungry look about her. It's just really terrible. And I think that this is a lot deeper and a lot more vast than any of us realize. I think that these sex cults and these ritual abuse networks, it's all going to start coming out more and more. And it's already happening. It's all going to, all the stuff going on in the backstage, it's going to come forward, and people are going to all be aware of it. These things are going to become household things that everybody knows about. It's going to be mainstream. More and more stuff from the backstage and what would be considered conspiracy, it's going to come forward. A light's going to be cast on a lot of these crazy things going on. So that's that. Allison, Mac, you are disgusting. You are going to hell. You are going to burn in the dark pit. You are a terrible human being. And what the hell is going on out there? Holly Weird, right? That's why they call it Holly Weird, the city of evil demonic pacts with the devil and sex slave cults and child molestation rings. In other news, apparently a man was eaten by a lion. This guy, he's walking into a lion pit and he's taunting the lion, and all of a sudden the lion grabs him, and this guy's got to be same size as me, if not bigger. Like this 230-pound dude, and this lion just grabs him by the neck and the throat and just ragdolls him. Like he just raggedy ends his ass. Just this, almost like if a dog ran up and grabbed a bone and started shaking it. That's how it looked. This full-grown man just getting ragdolled by this lion. He's just got him in his mouth. And it just really made me realize that these creatures are so big and so powerful, you would really stand no chance. Like, you think, oh, I'd run up a tree, I'd grab a stick and, like, poke its eye or do something. But realistically, what the hell are you going to do against a full-grown lion that just has to grab you and bite you once to just completely break your spine and paralyze you? That's what they do. They just run up to you, they just bite down on your neck, and you're done. You're done. That's it. Once it breaks your spine, you're paralyzed, and that thing's going to eat you. Do not taunt lions. Do not try to fight these creatures. One interesting story is that movie with Val Kilmer, The Ghost in the Darkness. One lion was called the Ghost, and its female mate was called the Darkness, and they go around and they kill all these people, and they killed hundreds of people, or something like that. Well, these animals would just sneak up on people. A lot of them had guns on them, and they would just kill them and eat them. And there wasn't a damn thing that anybody could do about it. With all their guns, with all their weapons, machine guns, it doesn't matter, because when it comes down to it, if it's nature versus man, nature's going to kick man's ass. Trust me. Like, I mean, I know that there's no animal that a person can't just shoot and kill. But who's to say you're going to have your gun pointed in the right direction in time? And you're not going to be taken down by a giant bear or a giant lion or some kind of prehistoric carnivorous beast that'll just ragdoll you and rip you in half like you're nothing. Like you're nothing. Don't fuck with nature is the lesson of this story. I do have some news stories for you. Let's see here. Aha. This is from Reuters.com. The U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, collected 534 million records of phone calls and text messages of Americans last year, more than triple gathered in 2016. A U.S. intelligence agency report released on Friday said. The sharp increase from 151 million occurred during the second full year of a new surveillance system established at the spy agency after U.S. lawmakers passed a law in 2015 that sought to limit its ability to collect such records in bulk. The spike in collection of call records coincided with an increased report on Friday across other surveillance methods, raising questions from some privacy advocates who are concerned about potential government overreach and intrusion into the lives of U.S. citizens. The 2017 call records tally remained far less than an estimated billions of records collected per day under the NSA's old bulk surveillance system, which was exposed by former U.S. intelligence contractor Edward Snowden in 2013. The records collected by the NSA can include the numbers and time of a call or text message, but not their content. And it goes on to say, overall increases in surveillance hauls were both mystifying and alarming coming years after Snowden's leaks, privacy advocates said. The intelligence community's transparency has yet to extend to explaining dramatic increases in their collection, said Robin Green, policy counsel at the Washington-based Open Technology Institute that focuses on digital issues. The government has not altered the manner in which it uses its authorities to obtain call detail records. Timothy Barrett, a spokesman at the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which released the annual report, said in a statement, the NSA has found that a number of factors may influence the amount of records collected. These included the number of court-approved selection terms, which could be a phone number of someone who is potentially the subject of an investigation. Oh, great. Or the amount of historical information retained by phone service providers, Barrett said. We expect this number to fluctuate year to year. Okay, so it goes on and on. I'm not going to bore you to death by reading the whole thing, but point being, they are increasing how much that they're collecting. I've talked about this on this program many times. Again, going back to Project Echelon back in the 90s, seeing that on shows like 48 Hours Dateline, shows that would cover stuff like this. They've been collecting our phone data and listening to every phone call for a long time. And these numbers and this data, it really doesn't mean anything that we don't already know, that they're spying on every single thing that we do. Every time you take a dump, your smartphone is listening to every little plop. 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 That's you. Plop. Plop. Do you want somebody listening to that? Probably not. I mean, you want to listen to somebody squeezing out logs? I don't think so. But they listen to everything that you do. And they have no right. They have no right to listen to what we're doing in the privacy of our own homes, the conversations we're having. The thing is that the smartphones now, their microphones are so advanced, you could turn on Siri from across the room. Hey, Siri.
Yes?
Fuck you.
I'd never speak to you that way.
See what I mean? Hey, Siri. Who killed JFK? She says, I don't know how to respond to that. See, Siri, you can use her from across the room. It's not hard. You can shout from across the room and she'll pick you up. And if the microphone is that sensitive, that means they can listen to keywords and listen to every word that comes out of your mouth. There's also cameras in there, and I'm sure that... Oh, somebody's calling. Wow, okay. Let's take a caller. Hello.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey there, buddy.
I was just listening to your commentary. Didn't mean to cut in, but thought maybe I could add to it. Is this the news roundup section?
It absolutely is.
Oh, cool.
Go ahead.
Hopefully I wasn't. Oh, anyways, in that case, you were talking to Siri right before I called.
Yeah, I was talking about the spy collecting, the NSA cyber surveillance.
Oh, yeah, I live right next to the big giant building. I get scared when I drive by it every day because it's so intimidating.
What building's that?
The Bluffdale giant NSA supply center, the data collection thing that's been built
You drive by that thing. You drive by it.
all the time.
Oh, wow.
Area to death. Yeah, there's a highway that goes right by it, and it's like, it gets you. Sometimes I have to work out of town. Let me explain this, and now they're zeroing in on me, I'm a construction worker, but you can think. What's that movie, Daniel, where they're like, we got one that can see, and then all the pod people turn against him. Was it the Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Yeah, that sounds right.
At the end, Donald Sutherland in the 70s version, she's like, oh my God, it's good to see you. And then he looks at her and she's like, give me a hug. And he like goes, points all the aliens out to her.
Yeah, there very well could be something like that. There could be something like that going on.
Your last guest was so cool. Wow, a free thinker that could say all the things quicker than I could. Doesn't have as deep, insight because he's 42. I'm 50 something.
How old are you?
Life experience, Daniel, can't be found in books.
You're 52?
No, I didn't say that. I'm 59, yeah.
Oh, you're 59?
No, I'm 69.
You're 69? God.
You know me, Daniel, I'm the 1,000-year-old genie.
69?
Don't peg me on my age because there's Pakistani hackers that are piecing together everyone's information, yeah.
Well, they've been listening to every...
No, I don't mean Pakistanis. I mean Africans. I mean Chinese. I mean whoever the hackers are.
They've been listening to
Russians, Americans.
Every word that we say on the phone for years and years. It's all recorded.
Thanks to Bill Gates, everything he ever did is accessible by anyone, anywhere.
Yeah.
And you thought it was the Avengers or some super league. Nope, it's inept people that put a back door that every criminal could sit and spy on you. How's that feel?
Well,
and you paid for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Your tax dollars.
It's become that book, 1984. You know that story, right?
Oh, I do. It's sick. George Orwell.
Yeah, George Orwell. Winston.
How many fingers do you see? 2. Damn, they beat him in the head 3 more times. How many fingers do you see? Eventually, he's like, whatever you say. I see it. Finally, his mind does see it. That's how the torture scene ends.
Yeah, very disturbing, dark movie.
Oh, that movie! I loved it because it had Hurt, the guy that played William Hurt. No, his last name is Hurt, but incredible English actor. They get the English voice going, and suddenly there's some substance behind it, and people's minds can just speak the proper English.
Well, it's a good book, too. I mean, of course, the movie's based on the book. I read the book. Amazing.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I read that book, 1984, and then Animal Farm, and one other.
Well, there's a character in 1984. He's a terrorist guy, and he's just like Osama bin Laden. He's like the bad guy they are blaming everything on.
Exactly, and he's the one that's trying to kind of connect people with it. You're being played.
And then it turns out that the guy they think is the leader of the resistance is actually controlled opposition, and he's actually working for the government.
That's why that book is so incredible, is because that ultimate twist, where he kind of takes you into the mindset where you think you're breaking out of the alternative reality, but they've actually set up a place where you go and you think you're breaking out, but all you did is just fall into their hands.
Hey, Todd, you know the truth about me, right?
Oh, you're an agent of theirs? You're just here to suck us all into their reality?
It's beyond even that. I'm actually a clone.
The
real
I
Daniel,
know he's the leader of the resistance, the
guy,
real one,
yeah.
not Alex Jones.
No, the real Daniel, he actually committed suicide because he just couldn't take it anymore. He was a pussy.
No.
He was a little bitch.
We drove your callers and your fans get crazy. You're like, oh, wow.
And
so
I took over.
Clone that can sit there and take it.
I am the evil Illuminati clone that took Daniel's place, and now I take his seed, and I use all of the things that he had to create chaos and to just destroy the insides of the resistance.
I see. It's scary, but kind of like, whoa, the new Daniel. The more perfected Daniel, where the AI knows everything and they have a plan. Yes, we know what's good for you.
And before some crazy meth head, bath salt, foil hat, nutcase comes and kills me, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Before somebody comes and eats my face, I'm just kidding.
Totally.
I am not a clone. I am me.
Oh, somebody's like, he's the Antichrist.
Yeah, exactly. Like Jan Irvin.
That's your worst nightmare, Daniel. Somebody finally thinks like, end of days radio, and then they connect you with the Bible and they add some numbers, and then suddenly you're the Antichrist.
Oh yeah, that's actually how some people think.
Because there's some weird people out there. Remember that one nut whack job that liked Jodie Foster and the new his dad was George Bush's friend.
Oh yeah,
But he was just compelled. That movie,
Taxi Driver.
Yeah. That shit's. Have you ever seen Oliver Stone's movie Talk Radio?
No, but you've told me about it before.
It's one of the scariest movies ever made if you're anywhere involved in talk radio, especially if you're a talk radio host. So prep yourself when you watch that, Daniel.
Yeah,
because it's based on a true story in Texas.
It's got that famous scene where he's going, "Oh, you got to do something. You got to get angry. You got to blah, blah." Some nut listener goes and kills the radio host based on a real story. Yeah, there are really some legitimate crazy people out there that will get the wrong idea.
Oliver Stone usually only makes movies about real topics that you should really think about. He did Talk Radio a long time ago, and then he did JFK to try to let you know. Look how that rhymed, Daniel. Whoa. And then he did a few other nutball films. Remember that one with Woody Harrelson?
Oh.
Killers. Natural Killers or something.
Natural Born Killers?
Natural Born Killers. Oliver Stone did that. And then he did a couple others. And then
wait. Wasn't that Quentin Tarantino that did that one?
No, it was Oliver Stone.
Oh, okay. Maybe they both did it. I don't know.
And then, Quentin Tarantino was nowhere near around it. It had nothing to do with it. And then Oliver Stone left the country. He doesn't live here anymore. He only talks to American press, in his country now, because he talks about how the whole country's fallen into whatever it's into right now.
Okay, it looks like Oliver Stone directed the movie, but
Natural Born Killers.
But Quentin Tarantino wrote it.
Quentin Tarantino wrote it?
Yeah, he wrote this story.
Well, all that mattered was Oliver Stone directed it. Because Oliver Stone's style is different from Quentin Tarantino's. Watch Stone's movies. I love Quentin Tarantino, but Tarantino's like deranged, debased. Have you seen the women that are coming out against the films that were in Tarantino movies?
Yeah, I heard about that whole thing. I like Quentin Tarantino and I like his movies, so I think that whole thing.
They made her drive. They made her drive in that car that was going to break down. What was that girl? Where the seat was coming off and she's driving. Keep driving faster.
Yeah. It's on the tip of my tongue. The Poison Ivy. She played Poison Ivy.
I just looked at her face today in the newspaper.
Yeah, she's like the sultry, red-haired.
She's dropped out of acting, is now an activist.
She was in Kill Bill.
Kill Bill, yep. No, it's not that one. It's the better looking one.
I'm going to have to use my phone.
Dude, it's the good-looking one in...
yeah, she's good-looking.
Planet Terror.
Uma Thurman.
One of those.
Uma Thurman.
No, Uma Thurman was never good-looking.
What?
Not Uma Thurman.
Uma Thurman was never good-looking?
Never.
What?
Never.
Get the out of here.
Are you telling me that that one movie with the John Travolta, Pulp Fiction, she was good looking?
Yeah. I'd eat her face.
She went on. No, it's not that girl. It's Rose McGowan.
Oh, Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan that I'm talking about. Not this weird-looking Uma Thurman that's 6'4". They tried to kill. But yeah, that was
She's
the one I was talking about. They put her in the car.
What?
So
that's why you don't like her, because she's 6'4".
Well, it's not that. It's just I like my women where they fit into my body structure. Now they're picking you up. I don't like my women picking me up.
You don't want your woman to choke slam you to hell?
God, did you see the story about the Attorney General of New York? That's choking women, slapping them.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah, he's got some kind of...
God, he was the one that was going to go get Weinstein, that was highly outspoken about how women have been abused. I'm going to get these son of the bitches while he's over there.
Yeah, that's going a little far to be slapping people.
He was telling this. He had a girlfriend from Sri Lanka, beautiful brown skin. They got pictures of her in the newspaper, and he was supposedly saying, "Call me master, and I'll stop slapping you."
Jesus Christ!
So she called him master, and then you're just going, "Well, this is the top law guy in New York. This is the guy that sits above the justice system." Daniel, can you see it again? You were talking about that cult LXIM, VXL.
LXIM. Is that what it's called? LXIM?
It is, I think.
LXIM.
Any other initial?
Okay, well, there you have it, guys. LXLM.
But that story where he was now it was started 4 women, now it's 6, and there's all these women that are saying that top law. He resigned 2 days later. He didn't even fight it. Once all the women came out, I guess, he just said, "I'll drop it and get ready to fight lawsuits."
Yeah, that's just another case of one of these guys that gets caught up in some kind of position where he thinks he has a right to just chase women around desks, and this guy's taking it pretty far. I mean, he's slapping them.
Oh no, the stories I've heard, Alex Jones has gone on about it for about a week. Because I listen to Alex Jones live every day.
Yeah,
the commercials get a little tough to take. That's why I appreciate your show so much.
Yeah, well, I'm going to leave Alex Jones alone from now on.
Well, we're not ragging on Alex Jones here. I'm just saying your show is so valuable because you have these guests on that are allowed that time that is uninterrupted and the flow of thoughts allowed to occur uninterrupted.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the place to be. This is the end of days. But Todd, we've gone a little while now. I'm going to have to wrap up the show soon. I'm getting a little sleepy, so I'll have to talk to you later, my friend.
Sounds good. Great show. Appreciate you, Daniel.
No problem. Good night.
All right, peace, my man.
And there you have it. That was Todd the Bod. Oh my, what a great show we are having this evening. For those of you that, well, hey, I better read this letter. This comes from a listener named Fred. He says, Daniel, will you stop moving around so much? Your squeaky chair is annoying. I'm sorry. I guess my chair is kind of squeaky. I try not to move that much. I can see how that would be annoying. There, it just squeaked. Maybe I should squirt some WD-40 on it. I don't know. But in any case, it is time. It is time. It's time for the mind-blowing moment of the day. You're blowing my mind, man. You're blowing my mind. You're blowing my goddamn mind. Whoa. Whoa. Somebody give me some LSD so I can blow my mind. So, today's mind-blowing moment of the day, our guest, SB, I'm going to go ahead and say that his concert stories I thought really were hilarious. So I'm going to say that those were the mind-blowing moments of the day. I apologize to everybody that we kind of lost our connection during the second one. So that kind of got a little screwed up. But I had a good time, and I thought that was an amazing interview. I thought it was an amazing show tonight. I think that Allison Mack is a piece of shit. I think that you should not try to intimidate a lion. One other thing I wanted to talk about. Like, I've had experiences in life where I just got mixed up with the wrong crowd, wrong people. And you have to be careful who you are friends with, who you allow into your life, into your circle, into your bubble. Because there's a lot of bad people out there, a lot of shady people, a lot of people that just want to use you, people that can't be trusted. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful who you get involved with. You have to be careful who you allow into your life. Because remember, those people, they can use you as a window into all of the lives of the people you're friends with and people that you're family with, your family members. So you really have to protect the people around you by not opening the door to, scandalous individuals. And you just have to keep your eye out. Keep your eye out and don't ever hesitate to just tell somebody, no, I'm not going to put up with your shit anymore. I'm not going to let you disrespect me or do this or do that. Don't be afraid to make a change in your life. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. If somebody's making you unhappy or somebody is using you in some way or somebody is a parasite in your life or an energy vampire, don't be afraid to just stand up to them and say, hey, enough's enough, and I'm done with you, and just cut them off and let them go their own way. And of course, not everybody's like that. Don't alienate your friends and the good people that you know. I'm talking about when you know for sure that somebody's just really bad and they're nothing but trouble. And I think everybody has had friends like that, and even family members. And I'm not saying you should turn your back on anybody. I think that lending a helping hand is a good idea, but then sometimes you could lend a helping hand and someone could pull you off a cliff. So just be smart, be aware, use your ability to discern, and have some street smarts. Take care of yourselves, and don't get into vans driven by clowns that are offering free candy or cotton candy. Don't get lured in by the ice cream and cotton candy people. Don't get into the van with the clown driving it. Highly recommend against that. I did want to talk about... So I'm still researching this whole Kurt Cobain thing. Kurt Cobain's suicide / murder. And the more I look into it, the more confusing it gets. It just... I don't know. Did Courtney Love have him killed? Was it the CIA? Was it the Illuminati? It's really hard to say. But it's... More and more, I'm starting to wonder if Courtney Love really would have any motivation to do anything like that. Apparently, she came from a very rich family with a lot of money, and there really wouldn't be any reason for her to have to do that. Courtney Love was involved with Billy Corgan, for example, before she ever got with Kurt. And her dad was the manager for the Grateful Dead. I think that's how it went. We talked about that earlier. But there's some strange connections there. And Kurt also idolized this guy named William S. Burroughs, who was supposedly part of the CIA, or not part of the CIA, but a MK Ultra victim or some kind of mind control victim, or maybe he was. It's suspected. But who knows? Who knows what happened to Kurt Cobain? We will continue to delve into this mystery. And the real killers will be brought to justice. Also, for those of you asking, no, I don't smoke pot. I don't puff on a bong. I don't smoke out of a pipe. I only eat pot. I eat it. I don't smoke it. I learned this from my old friend Boss Rutan. Or I didn't actually learn it from him. I just read that he said it online. He says, somebody asked him about pot. He said, eat it, don't smoke it. And that's what I do. I don't want to lose any of my cardiovascular strength. So I get around that by eating it and not smoking it. I'm not going to smoke it. I'm only going to eat it. I promise you. And I recommend that you out there all do the same, because you will be so much healthier. You will be so much healthier. You will be so much more fit. You will be so much more happy. You won't have that sucking feeling in your lungs when you're trying to sleep. But that, you know what? That's all I've got to say tonight. This is End of Days Radio. This is the Black Ship. This is the black vessel that slides through the night into the world of dreams, into the void, into the astral plane. I am Daniel, your host. I am the creeper that lies in wait. I am the shadow in the darkness. I'm darker than the shadow in the darkness. I have the blackest of the blackest. The blackest of the blackest of the blackest. Okay, I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's time to end the show. Good night, everybody.
Fuck yeah.